This conference will now be recorded.
Chairman Hildebrand,
Present.
Councillor Arnold,
Present.
Councillor Ordesa,
Yep.
Councillor Corn.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I may have a motion for the approval of the agenda.
You want to do the, okay, yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move item 12 to item 1.
For all of you that don't have a agenda, item 12 is holding a closed session to review attorney-client privilege to litigation threatened or pending against the city. Motion for that to be moved to item 1. Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being no opposition, item 12 now becomes item 1.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the agenda as amended.
Second.
I have a motion, the approval of the minute or the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Now, right into closed session.
No, let's do the approval.
Okay. And a motion for the approval of minutes for the legal committee meeting on Thursday, December 15, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the legal committee meeting on Thursday, December 15th, 2022.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none. Now we will move this meeting to closed session, and councilors will, and Mr. Matthews and the city attorney, we will all move over to the mayor's conference room. We shall return.
Thank you, folks.
Counselor, you have to vote to go into closed session?
Okay, do I have a motion on?
Mr. Chairman, I move we move into closed section and it's discussion purpose only. No decision will be made while we're in that meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we move to closed session with no decisions being made during that meeting. All those in favor signify by.
Voice vote? Vote.
Okay, voice vote. Okay. Okay, call the roll, Madam Chair.
Go ahead and call it. So just go ahead and start.
Chairman Hildebrand,
Yes.
Councillor Arnold,
Yes.
Councillor Ordesa,
Yes.
and Councillor Corn.
Yes.
Okay, we shall move to closed session.
They left at 4:03.
That contact info.
Thanks very much. So item 11, or item 12, session. Sir?
This conference will now be recorded.
I have a motion and a second that we come out of our closed session with no decisions being made. Voice vote, or
Do a voice vote.
I'll call the roll.
yeah.
Yeah.
Call the roll, please.
Councillor Arnold,
Yes.
Councillor Ordesa,
Yep.
Councillor Corn,
Yes.
Chairman Hildebrand.
Yes. Okay, back to session. First item on the agenda, well, it's number 2 now, are the Roswell Air Center lease agreement. First one being Trans Aero Limited.
Put me on the committee.
And I think is in the hallway.
She was here.
Yeah, well, she's having a meeting. Mr. Chairman, if you don't get an objection, maybe we ought to skip the item just to keep this thing moving. And then we'll get back to item 1 when all the parties are present.
If you want to make that motion, then we shall
So
do.
moved.
Have a motion.
Second.
Item 1 to item 2. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition. So now we will move to item number 2, which is resolution 23, repealing resolution 2065. Consider and recommend to city council approval of adoption. Okay. Mr. Matthews, please.
I think this is actually, I think my name was inadvertently put on
Well,
that.
that was not yours.
That one was the one that was not mine.
Yes, so, Mr. Chairman, members of your council, for item 2, start with this one. This is actually something Bobby Sloan, Councilor Corn, is supporting.
Oh, this is my turn already? You didn't give me a chance to sit down and take a breath.
All right. So,
Okay,
go to the next slide.
take it, take it. Hold on. You all have a packet that was left in your place on,
Councilor, this is the fees.
oh, that's not me. Sorry.
Will you put your name on it? But in any case, I'll explain it. So as you guys are aware, there's a resolution 20-65 that provided for a fee schedule of a number of things when there's an event. There's been a lot of discussion about it, but it's important to make a determination about whether this is something the council wants to continue using moving forward in light of the 70-30 issues and things like that for the budget. Similarly, the city before has already had a special events policy that allows for fluidity in determining whether or not, what amount of fees, if any, should be imposed. And it sets up a tier system. So in particular, it can be city sponsored, city supported, or independent of the city. So independent of the city would, through policy that already exists, give fees for whatever for police, fire, that sort of thing. Similarly, if the city supports or sponsors an event, then we clearly wouldn't. The way that 20-65 is, regardless of the city's support, charges are supposed to be. So it's a simple resolution, just whether or not we want to keep that resolution in front of you active.
So, Mr. Hinchman, you're saying that policy PA 001 is in effect?
It was never done. Yeah, it was since 2017.
It's 2017, it's been in effect. And so 2065 is just layered on top of what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're saying what removes the layer,
Yeah, if you remove the layer,
repetitive?
yeah, the city still can charge, but it doesn't require charges. So if it's an event the city wants to be supportive of, it's,
2065 does require it.
yes.
And so this pulls it back, so it doesn't have to be a requirement.
Right. They don't have to do charges, but the city, it is discretion to still pay.
And who makes that discretion?
That would be a
Manager call?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Councilor Pesa.
I just want to make clear I understand the policy is if an event requires police, right now, I think we charge whatever X number of dollars per officer to be there as security. Is that correct?
correct.
So if this one is repealed, then we don't have to pay for the time and of the police
For the
officers to be there?
Councilor, Mr. Chair, Councilor, the party putting on the event wouldn't have to necessarily.
Have to get the approval.
So I guess I'm confused. Is this applying to the city events or are these applying to the organizations or individuals that are putting on the event?
Oh, okay. This 2065 applies to organizations putting on events.
Okay,
So say somebody wants to have a parade, and let's say it's 4th of July, the city right now, under this resolution, is supposed to charge them for all sorts of stuff they do. Under the policy that already exists, the city could choose not to if it finds, say, civic value in the event.
Well, this will be great, especially for the Veterans Parade. So I will support it.
And it's at the discretion of the city manager
Right.
is where the discretion will lie. And that's what he's saying, that policy PA 001 will be in effect. And that is at the discretion of the city manager.
Okay.
Counselor,
To me.
Counselor Best.
So my curiosity is now, if it's at the city manager's level and it goes back to the older way, which a lot of it was just put out there from the city. So who's going to repair the stage? Who's going to replace the cones when they're stolen, so forth and so on. So I feel like, because I haven't seen the agreement of PA 001, so I don't know what's in it. I asked for it, but haven't got it yet. So my curiosity is if something's stolen, ruined, whatever during these folks using it, who's going to pay for it? Is there some net for the city so they will either pay for it, replace it, so forth and so on? Because now we're getting back to where we're taking out of our general fund to pay for stuff we've already paid for or was donated or however the case may be that we need to upkeep. Because if I remember, I asked Mike a little bit and he was telling me the stage was donated. Okay, so every time you use it, that's oil, bearings, rubber, hydraulic fluid up and down, care like that, electrical. Who's going to replace that when it starts falling apart? If you implement this and fall back to the old way. Just throwing it out there for y'all.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Best. So as you'll see, there's actually no deposit structure in here, but we do charge deposits for people who want to have special events. That deposit's actually part of the special events category. So somebody would keep a reasonable deposit as the policy provides. And if stuff goes missing or stuff is broken, they forfeit the deposit.
Is the deposit determined by the manager too, or is it deposit from 2017? In that PA 001 is the cost from 2017, or does the manager determine it like he determines everything else?
It's reasonable based on the event according to the policy.
Okay.
Counselor Howerson.
So I think this is great because personally, I've been involved in Main Street Roswell and they put on a lot of events as well as the veterans that are very good for the civic community. And there's a lot of events that they just don't do anymore just because it costs money and they're free to, the light parade, UFO parade. There's a lot of events they do, Kevin, that are beneficial to the entire community and they can't afford to do it because it's not a money-making event. So I like this policy.
Yeah. Counselor.
Historically, the reason we have this list is because everybody in their sister would come or brother would come and ask, can we have a parade? And so streets would end up having to pay overtime. Yes, and it suddenly comes out of streets budget to pay for all the barricades. It comes for, and this was to say, okay, this is what the cost was every time we have a parade. And realistically, what it came down to is streets budget was being pushed, sanitation's budget was being pushed, and it was all because of all these events that we were holding. And the city needs to support them. But it gets to the point, okay, just like the use of the stage, everybody wanted the stage until we started charging, and then they found out they didn't need it because they could use the steps of the courthouse. And it was less use, and we didn't have to set it up every time they wanted to have an event. And so historically, other people were deciding what our budgets were going towards, and the council had no control over it because we were just, oh yeah, we'll host that, or we'll do this. And so I think that's why 2065 was written, so that we could actually have everything broken down of what is the true cost to the city when we have a parade or when we put out a cone, you know. And so that's why we created it. And I think there was some discretion by the city manager, but it was a resolution. But there again, if 1065 says the city manager is the one that has the discretion, then it gets back down to the point where who's the buddy walks really, we're going to push, but the Alzheimer's walk, we won't. Well, who's going to make those decisions? And
2065 doesn't give him that. If you read 2065, which is in the packet, it does not give him or her, the city manager, the right to waive.
but it rested back to the council.
It's got to come back to council to waive, but the city manager under 2065 does not have the right to waive.
But the council could. Well, and
Council
the one
can.
that decides the budget.
But 2065 as is does not allow that.
But it allows.
It has to come back through committee and then to council.
Right.
So, Councilor Perry.
It might, just two things. Number one, Mr. Science, if you could please provide PA 001 in the council packet. I think that will help us all because getting a bearing as to what would be in place would help. But I would just say just for the committee and I'll leave it. We actually voted on this before I went off the council. You know, some of y'all may remember before I went off council before, and I voted against it, not because I don't understand the premise of what they're trying to do, trying to make a recoup, trying to keep, whether it be police or fire or roads, trying to keep that budget for what's really for public safety portion of it. But I just felt like there are some things that a city does just because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it's just things you do, it's just, if that's a buddy walk, I think that sometimes there's just some things that we all support. And so the going away with this, I have no problem with. I would support not having it anymore. I do, however, think that if we indeed have within policy PA 001 that authority to do so, I would just like to encourage that we do consider that some things may need to have some charges incurred and keep that in consideration. But we can make sure that that policy is attached in the council packet. If it doesn't, sorry.
I agree with you, Councilor. So just for clarification, stage is a bad thing to use as an example because the city manager had put that on surplus property and we were going to dispose of it. So
Just an example, just.
I know, but
That's
just
30 years old.
that thing is, yeah,
Coca-Cola donated the home.
I remember that. So, but anyway,
Yeah, it was just an example of how stuff gets worded.
Yeah.
And if it would have been kept in order.
well, but now we're going to keep it. It didn't go on the surplus list.
Oh,
So anyway, Councilor Arnold first and then you, Councilor Halverson.
So just two questions. So I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. That doesn't mean all events will be, free. It means there will be certain ones that they fit certain criteria. So there will still be fees, but under certain circumstances, there will be some that actually have the ability to, the city manager will have the ability to waive, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there will still be revenue coming. The second question is there any way we could actually have a criteria for what's like noted as far as what, because, choosing one over the other is always an issue, but kind of like a criteria of what it means for a special event that would be waived.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Arnold, to answer your question. Yeah. So the policy, and I do apologize for not putting it in the packet. The policy provides for those three tiers, whether it's city sponsored, city supported, or independent of the city. But it doesn't really flesh those out. And so that'd be the core of the criteria. That could be done by council or through policy. You could direct me that way. A city sponsor event presumably would be, we waive everything. A city supported event means we waive something depending upon what we're getting out of it. And if it's independent, we would charge reasonable rates.
Councilor Howerson.
So I think there should be a criteria, a certain amount of population that benefits from it. Because I think right now the way it is too, correct me if I'm wrong, but the city's charging the city to have events. From what I understand, the police banquet last year, they got charged to have their own banquet and they're city employees. So to me, if it affects a large amount of the population, I think it's not free to the organization. The people that attended paid for it with their taxes, the services. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And the police are now having their event this year,
At the fairgrounds because of that.
which is very embarrassing.
Yes.
And I don't shame them for that.
No, not at all.
They got to expend, they can only cover so much. And so, Councilor Perry.
And Mr. Acton as well on the resolution itself, we have two whereas, but therefore, I'd like some consideration. If y'all either change it here or if you could just work on something, the amendment meeting, it talks about how their services and equipment for purposes of special events on city property. That's not always the case. Sometimes it may be a business that is having something for the community. It may be a church that's having several situations where it's not city property. So if we could either add a whereas and there change some verbiage to address that.
Any other councilors with questions? Neighbors.
Just a quick question. The current policy, when anyone puts on an event, they are also required to provide liability insurance. Does PA 001 address the issue of liability insurance? Yes. How the liability would be divided depending on the criteria?
So like this, there's, Mr. Chair, Mr. Neighbors, all of this is repealing the language of this particular resolution, which says fees shall be established as presented. There's no insurance requirement within these. So any insurance requirements that we currently have is coming through policy.
I think we've got to rewrite.
Okay, well,
Councilor Corn.
question for legal people there. So presently, there's nowhere where anybody has to come up with the liability policy, if I understood you correctly.
There's nothing in ordinance or resolution that requires it.
Mr. Chairman, the county requires $1 million liability. You're going to use every time you see something set up on the courthouse steps, using the courthouse for whatever, you got to have $1 million liability, and that just protects the county. And I think we ought to follow suit. Now, I don't know if it needs to go in here or goes into another one, another policy resolution somewhere else. But it should be a requirement.
I think that's what Mr. Neighbors is saying.
We've already got a policy in place. In fact, if Juanita was here, she could probably explain it a little bit. Oh, there she is. Help me out here. Anytime a private organization wants to put on an event of any type that involves city property, we require, is it $1 million or a $2 million liability policy? It's $1 million. We're already asking for that. So in this particular case, if we're going to look at 3 tiers where obviously if it's an independently run event, I would assume that that independent organization is responsible for the liability. But if it's a joint event or a co-sponsored event or a city-sponsored event, then there's a gray area there as to who provides the liability insurance.
But it doesn't need to be in this.
No. So since it's a special event, sort of defined generically as stuff on city properties, Councilor Perry pointed out. So if we don't want to let people have events on our property, so long as there's no First Amendment issue, we can require anything reasonable for them to do. The policy being reasonable to protect us.
You can change the amount if you're concerned about the $1 million.
Ms. Jennings.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, in our PA 001, section 1101, it talks about the insurance. It's bodily injury at $500,000 per person, 1 million occurrence, property damage at 200,000, and they do have to name the city as additionally insured. It's in the policy.
Okay. Right.
Was this policy being used in conjunction with the price, with our price list that we had with 2065? Was it being used in conjunction? So we were using both. So my question again is, the manager is now going to tell the events people what they need to pay for if they're going to have an event. Am I right? Am I missing it? Because this is a list that they know they can go to, and they can say, okay, we can do this at this cost, and fix their budget. And now if they're going to ask to do an event, they have no clue what anything costs. They have to go to the manager, and he's going to have to say, oh, my investment's on this. Am I hearing this wrong?
Was under the impression that it was on PA 001. Is it not?
So there's no.
Because I don't see it.
There's no,
I'm going to make a motion. I want to ask for a motion right now that this be postponed and brought back to this committee with more information, because we just don't have it.
Absolutely.
So do I get a motion?
Yes.
I got a motion to postpone item number 2, send it back to the legal department and work with the city management.
And we need to get the additional resolution or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or
And so
because I think there's duplicates here.
I got it. So we got your motion. I got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being no opposition, so moved. Now we will go back to item 1,
Yep, we're ready to go.
which is the Trans Arrow Limited piece. Slam for.
This first item is for a city recommending approval to authorize Trans Arrow Limited to enter into a lease agreement for attractive land. Place a temporary 60 by 24 modular trailer. Trans Arrow is currently in an interim lease. This is to move them to a long-term lease. Their land parcel will consist of 14,500 square feet, the same as their interim. But the change here will be the lease term is for 5 years, commencing March 1, 2023, and ending on February 28, 2028. There will be an evaluation. So under special provisions, there will be an evaluation in the 24th month of the lease term to determine the permanency of the trailer and to work with code enforcement to make sure that we, sorry, can I say community develop, community, that thing. To
Neighbors.
to make sure that they have what permanent fixture they're going to go with at that point, if it's going to be this trailer becoming a permanent fixture or moving to a different style. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as the rent sum of $1,450 and no cents per year, payable in 12 monthly installments of $120.83, making the property 10 cents per square foot. For the first year, the annum rent will increase by 3% or CPI, whichever is greater each year until the termination date. I stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the lease for Trans Arrow.
I'll second.
On consent. Counselor,
What?
on the consent agenda.
Oh, you're going to make me make all those decisions
That's
too?
exactly correct.
You know how much I hate the consent agenda. All right,
You
let's
want
put
to
it
see
on
if you get a
consent.
motion,
I'll put it
see if
on.
you get it approved.
I'll allow that motion.
Let's not quibble.
Consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, there is further discussion. Trans Arrow is all in agreement with everything on this lease?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I actually have a signed lease already from them.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Moving along, Mr. Chairman.
So I always ask that question.
I know you
Leases.
do. That's the reason why I don't preempt you, because I want you to say something.
No, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed, there being no opposition, so move to the consent agenda. Next is the Roswell wastewater department lease.
Okay, this is to consider recommending approval to authorize the city of Roswell wastewater department to enter into a lease for a land parcel located at the Roswell intersection. This is an existing lift station. And the year 2020, 2021, the FAA came out and did a sampling of our leases and found that we had a few city leases that were not in place officially. They were being run by memos, et cetera. So we're putting these into formal leases again. This lease will be for 10,000 square feet, more or less, located on the Roswell Air Center for the lift station. The lease term is for 5 years and commencing July 1, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2028. We're bringing this lease forward so that the departments have time to consider these for their budgets. And then also our Part 139 inspection will be at the end of March. And so we want to make sure these leases are able for us to be able to present them to our inspector. And the financial consideration is $1,000 and no cents per year with monthly installments of $83.33, consistent with the 10 cents per square for the first year, and the annual rent will increase by 3% or CPI, whichever is greater annually until the lease termination.
Councilor Arnold.
So, yeah, I see the $1,000 payable in 12 months installments of $833.33 for the first year.
I think they messed it up.
Okay.
Zero.
Well, I actually deduced that, but kind of felt that needed to be corrected.
I do have a question. It's not that this is a large dollar amount, but you're going to raise them by the CPI. When they're going through their budget, they won't know what to budget.
Sure.
So, what's your measurement date?
First year
They'll know, but the second year, they're not going to know. And I know we have another lease in here that's of a larger amount
Yes.
with the water department as well.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, you'd be negotiating against yourself, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it being fixed, but this is the language that
I know.
goes forward, so.
I guess the water department's not here to argue on their own behalf.
Mr. Chairman, you get into problems when you treat one tenant different than the other. And it might be where we just decide when the time comes, maybe we waive that. I mean, that could be done, so. I mean, we're taking out of one pocket, putting in the other.
Well, it's taking it from a regular, you're taking it from one enterprise to the other enterprise. And so,
I know how to take care of that.
I know, but still. Counselor.
I'm just wondering, are we doing this to keep track of the money, or because everything is city property? And so at the end of the day, I mean, the money's going to change from one account to the other account, and or is it because we're trying to get the airport separate at some point in time?
Mr. Chairman.
That this would make a lot of sense.
Well, but I believe because you got one enterprise fund over here operating and another enterprise fund over here operating, that's like two separate businesses, even though it's under the city umbrella, all of it. But you've got to take the money from one enterprise fund. You can't provide a free service from one enterprise fund to the next enterprise fund. But to your point, it could be going down that path. You haven't ever decided that.
Right.
That could be it, but I think we're precluded from allowing one enterprise fund to give free service to another enterprise fund. If I'm not, Councilor.
This is an FAA.
Yeah.
Oh, Part 139.
Yeah.
Okay. You
That answer your
want to
question?
read it? I got it right here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this agreement with the Roswell Wastewater Department to be put on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the lease with the wastewater department. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none, so moved. Next item, which happens to be the
Water Department. Yeah, they got the next two.
This one is for the central control located on the Roswell Air Center. The City of Roswell Water Department requests a lease for a land parcel consisting of 479,160 square feet, more or less, located at the Air Center for central control. The lease term is 5 years, commencing July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2028, with an annual rent requirement of $47,916, payable in 12 monthly installments of $3,993, keeping us at 10 cents per square foot for the first year. The annum rent will increase by 3% or CPI, whichever is greater annually until the lease termination date. And if you'll show the next slide, you'll be able to see the size of the parcel that they are currently in. So they do have the option to decrease that footprint. If, when they go through their budget discussions, they do that, I will present an amendment to this lease.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
and just one quick question. The center area there that's just dirt, what are they using that for?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
That's the parcel I anticipate that they may deduct.
thank you.
It's just a revenue generator for the airport.
Peter, base.
But they're not here to defend themselves.
There you go.
So I guess Lorenzo should have been here today.
They're in Las Cruces in training.
For Brigada.
Oh, perfect timing.
We have these leases.
And he's okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions? Need your motion. Oh, you made the motion.
Well, I'll keep going. We can keep swapping out seconds. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the Roswell Water Department dealing with the central control and put it on the consent agenda.
Second.
Wait a minute, it's his turn to second. I don't mind.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the lease with the water department on 22,200 square feet for 5-year term. Do we have, are they getting the rent escalation number as well?
Yes.
Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none, so moved. Next item, the Roswell Water Department lease, water towers.
So this is for 2 parcels at the Air Center. The City of Roswell Water Department plus the lease for a land parcel consisting of 22,200 square feet, more or less, and a land parcel consisting of 34,300 square feet. That was taken from the perimeter, fence perimeter that was placed. So that will also be for a 5-year lease commencing July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2028. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as a rent sum of $5,630 payable in 12 monthly installments of $469.17. Again, consistent with the 10 cents per square foot for the first year. The annum rent will increase 3% or CPI, whichever is greater annually until the lease is terminated. And if you show the next slide, you can see those were given to me from the engineering department, how they put the fencing in.
Are there any questions? Mr. Foster?
As we're creating this, I understand the monthly thing, but this being city to city, wouldn't it just be easier to just do a once a year payment?
And you can pay it hours he wants. I mean,
Yeah,
I believe that's how they do it.
Yeah,
just,
I'm not sure that's how they do it. I've had it both ways, so.
well,
I think a city manager can direct them to do that.
Yeah.
just so that you know it's done on January 1st or whenever, just so that it's, that way they don't have to worry about it.
No prohibition in here against paying early.
Yeah.
I just,
You're on the finance committee. I'll expect you to make that motion in the time.
Okay. Any further discussion? I have a motion, please. I'm going to call on Councilor Arnold, or you want to continue your?
Oh, I'm.
You like that word consent, so just keep going.
I think you misstated the point.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the Roswell Water Department water towers to enter into a lease for 2 land parcels located at Roswell Air Center to be added to the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the City of Roswell Fire Department lease with the Air Center.
So the City of Roswell Fire Department is requesting a lease for a land parcel consisting of 58,849 square feet, more or less located at the Roswell Air Center. The lease term is for 5 years, commencing July 1, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2028. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as the rent sum of $5,849. I'm sorry, $5,848.90. Payable in 12 monthly installments of $47.41. Again, consistent with the 10 cents per square foot. For the first year, annum rent will increase 3% or CPI, whichever is greater annually until the lease is terminated. If you, the termination date, if you'll go to the next slide. This is the area that the fire department utilizes. I do want to explain, they do have ramp access, but because they are a public service, we are able to give them the 10 cents per square foot.
Okay. Any questions? I have a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the City of Roswell Fire Department to enter into a lease for land parcel located at the Roswell Air Center to be added to the consent agenda.
A motion, I have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition. So moved.
Don't skip the part that can help you.
So next item on the agenda is
So first, I just want to take a quick moment to thank all of the parties that have worked diligently over the last few months regarding this lease negotiation, including the Airport Advisory Commission, along with the driveway themselves. This has been a little labor intensive, but I feel like we've come to a good result. Be able to meet the fair market value appraisal requirements or parameters with the FAA, and then also meeting our requirements in the city and with the Air Center. So I'd like to present considering recommending approval to authorize the Alien City Dragway LLC to enter into a lease for a land parcel, including building 98 and 99, located at the Roswell Air Center, for operating a drag strip. This lease term is for 5 years, commencing February 1st, 2023, and ending January 31st, 2028. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as the rent sum of $12,600.90. So the 90 cents shouldn't be on there. It should just say $12,600, payable in 12 monthly installments of $1,050 for the first year, and the annum rent will increase by 3% or CPI, whichever is greater. Their current lease rate is $585, so that shows their increase and due diligence to the FAA. There will be one amendment that's requested by the tenant on the termination clause, number 30, to replace either party by giving 180 days written notice. The tenant has requested that the lease read, this lease may be terminated by the city upon a majority vote of the city council, which will become effective 60 days following an affirmative vote.
So we want to adopt that language?
I think
Not
what we got to
adopted.
do right now is after we had some discussion, we need to send this back to our legal department.
So the tenant has accepted the insurance terms as stated, so they will be carrying general liability and pollution insurance.
Still believe there's some issues that need to be.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and add the proposed language.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Corn, I think we can actually move forward if they're accepting the insurance.
They are accepting that.
Yes.
I'm leery.
I agree.
I'm leery.
Okay, I don't want to slow this thing down.
I don't want to slow it down.
It's been slow slog for a while.
Without delving into too much detail, this is going to be a separate condition that must be complied with, independent of the lease.
Okay.
Okay.
It won't be a body to, it'll be an attachment to this lease, or it will be a separate agreement.
It's a function of state law. So they'd be breaching the lease if they don't comply with it.
Okay. Any specific language we need to put in here?
We need to insert that.
No, it's basic contract. It's any breach of law breaches the lease.
Okay. All right. But I'm interested in the language addition that you wanted to put in here.
Sure. The copy that I gave you has the stricken language. I can hand it to you.
It says in there, just so you know, Council Corner.
It's right here.
Item 30, the lease may be terminated by the city upon a majority vote of the city council, which will become effective 60 days following an affirmative vote.
Okay, so
So if it doesn't come before us, or they don't get an affirmative vote, they're still stuck to the lease. Mr. Mayor.
The only thing that concerns me, a lot of, Roswell's right in the middle of Amarillo and, El Paso and Destin, a lot of the raceways. And a lot of times I don't know a lot, but I know they've had major national drag meets here. And I don't want to have that in any time. I don't want to cut them out of the ability to have if they have to have 6 months in advance notice to contract one of those big national events. It brings in, they've had some that brought in some really big names, and it's just because we're 200 miles from everything. And I would hope this is having them being cut out anytime in a whim of the council. I would want to make sure, at whatever reason they do it, that we don't cut them out after they've advertised a big national or contracted with a big national drag thing and that event. And there's other people know a lot more about it than I do. I just remember, I hear them going off, or used to, so.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't know who, Mr. Kuhn, are you able to speak on language of the termination, please?
Well, sir, all we asked was give and take on it.
Yeah.
Give you 60 days, you give us 60 days. Let me explain to you how this all kind of got started. A year ago this month, we were out at the airport. We got reading pretty good and told our rent had just gone up to $18,000 a month, about a year, a month. And January of this year, which would be this month, everything was supposed to have been off that track. The buildings, the dirt, the light poles, figures, everything. We cleared out. First, most drag racers, it's not a hobby, it's passion. So we all got together and I know y'all are probably tired of seeing my face. But it's something that was very dear to a bunch of people. And we just wanted to race. We realized our rent is doubled. And now we're having to pay some other insurance. Right up to about here. Kind of like owning a race horse. Before I got in this, I had a small fortune. I have a large fortune. Now I got a small fortune invested in. It's all out of 3 or 4 of us' pocket. We just want a good, stable lease that we can go out there and plan. We're behind the 8 ball now, a couple of 3 months. All the Hobbs, Amarillo, Abilene, Albuquerque, El Paso, they've all got their stuff planned. We haven't been able to do that because we didn't know if we were going to get around or not. So we're going to have to start catching up with the 8 ball, catching the 8 ball. We would just like, if we have to terminate 60 days, if y'all need to terminate from us
60 days. The lease is fair. And the environment, can I bring this up?
Sure.
You know, we just, about the VHT that we put on our track, we have to get $2,500 worth of insurance now because it's an ecological problem. The company we buy our stuff from provides the chemical you put on the track, the sticky, all the NASCAR tracks, every drag racing track in the United States, millions of gallons. Now we find out that ours is ecologically a problem. Can't understand that, but I guess she's smarter than I am as far as what we have on our track. It sprays about this far above the ground. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't seep down into the dirt because it's concrete and asphalt. But we're gonna have to pay extra insurance for that now. So we're just trying to get our season together to where we can get it built up and built up. With Juanita, we're gonna try to do the lodger's tax. That's gonna help us a bunch. But we just want a shot at getting this thing going at this ASAP as soon as possible.
I hear you, Mr. Kuhn, and I want to also thank Mr. Conkle. People don't realize the work that Mr. Conkle has put in.
I was going to thank Mr. Conkle, Jana, Jennifer. They've all worked very, very hard, and they know our passion out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that support this track that are high dollar people in this town. So we appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate what you guys have done and stuck to your desire to continue to operate out there. And that we've finally have come to something that's a resolve that everyone can live by and be satisfied that it's a fair deal. And Mr. Conkle, I do want to thank you. I know you've put in tremendous hours getting this rate satisfied by the FAA, because that's not the only person. It's just not us. You know, we got other people that we have to answer to out there, unfortunately. Mr. Conkle, I want to thank you for your hard work and help with this event to continue on in our city, because a year ago, it didn't look very nice. It looked terrible. And here we are today. And I'm just think that by working together, we've come a long way. So I guess the question is, Mr. Kuhn, are you satisfied with this termination clause that says that the city council may vote you out and give you 60 days?
Yes.
You're happy with that?
Okay.
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 If you're happy with it, I'm not going to amend it.
Let me put it this way. I just hope you don't.
Because I would, I'll just tell you. I'd strike that.
That's our city council. You would strike that?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my God.
I would give you a standard
This is for my.
loss is what, 180?
185.
I'd give you 180.
Feel better.
That's fair. Better than,
Well, I don't, maybe I'm confused. Number 6.
I'd give him 6 months.
But 80,
Yeah, no, that's better than 60 days.
What our fault is, if for some reason we go belly up.
Yeah.
In 6 months, we owe another 6 months rent.
But if you're belly up, who cares?
you don't have anything to pay with.
They're happy with 60 days. I'm happy with 60 days. You're ready for a motion.
He's happy with it, I guess. Well, I'm not, but
Well,
that's his lease, not mine.
you can vote no.
I will.
All right.
Well, again, maybe I'm just still a little confused. We don't want to be terminated we don't want to terminate our lease and still owe the city a bunch of money.
Well, I just want them to have the protection so that somebody didn't come along at some point in time, right in the middle of your race season or in April, and go, you're out of here. Which is possible. Probably that could happen to you.
Let's give them 90 days instead of 60.
Give him 180.
90 days would be fine.
Just amendment.
Better than the 1 month we have. Gotta have it now.
No, 90 in here.
Well, that's all right. I think I could remember that. But I don't know. Let's
But it's helpful for you.
Okay. Our concern was not being able to pay if we default.
Sure, I get that. But you also need protection from the other side of the table.
It's a give and take thing. 90 days is kind of in the middle of 6 months, it's 60 days. For a 30 day, I'm open to suggestion for anything else. 90 days.
Smarter than me about leasing and stuff.
Well, and you're right, and justly so, that if you walk in, we walk in and say, we're closing you down. You walk in and tell us that you're done, you're belly up, then you have to pay 3 months, 3 months. 90 days.
It's
Or you would
$3,000.
have to pay 2 months.
Before that would have been 6 months.
Well, what do you want? Tell me what you want. I'll make the motion.
All we're trying to do, Robbie, is to allow you to be coming, let's just say April next year, you got your calendar set. Council changes its mind or something comes along and they tell you, you're out of here in 60 days. Your season's over with. You can take 180 days, at least you'll probably get to the bulk of your season. If you so desire. We don't ever look like you're going to go belly up. And don't want to think that you will, but.
180 days, you're right. Probably. Then you can plan, if you get a season, you can plan it.
Yeah.
120,
80 days?
80 days.
I'll go with 180.
Be a lot better.
Man wants.
Give my was.
180 days. Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend page 9 of 13 according to this document. It didn't make my packet, so I'm kind of on the fly here.
It's 9 of 13.
Well, I don't have a 9 of 13. Maybe I do.
I don't know what it was in the original, it changed to 13.
Chairman, while we're waiting, when I was in the legislature, we got the city $40,000 worth of aluminum bleachers that you can pull around. And you know, the city was going to send those to junk. They took them out there to the drag strip. And those guys went out there and pumped grease in all the grease certs and all the fittings on those bleachers. And they worked fine. The city was going to sell them for junk. And it's all aluminum. They were like $40,000 worth of portable bleachers that you can pull around. So these guys have saved the city an awful lot of money, and it's just by doing simple maintenance and stuff. They've been good stewards. So I appreciate you going to 180 days. It keeps a lot of kids off the streets. It's one more activity that somebody can do in Roswell that a lot of us don't do, but you know, there's enough people that do. And I think it's a good deal to keep it going. Thank you. Sorry to bother you.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we strike the word 60 and in suit thereof 180 days.
That's under section 30 of the lease.
Yeah.
Which is for termination.
I'm holding one sheet of paper in my hand. I don't have the full thing in front of me.
We have a motion by Councilor on the consent agenda.
Well, it's amended
Oh,
first.
you got a minute, okay.
Second.
So we're amending the termination clause of this lease to reflect, which, are we going back to the original that was there, either party by giving 180 days written notice?
Here, I'll read the whole thing.
Read it, how's you gonna have it?
All right. The lease may be terminated is pretty standard language. The city, upon a majority vote of the city council, which will be effective 180 days following an affirmative vote.
Okay. Motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Now, about the lease agreement now? Yes.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would like to authorize the
Thank you, Robbie.
Alien City Dragway LLC enter into a lease as amended. Hey, for a land parcel including Building 98 and 99 located at the Roswell Air Center to the consent agenda.
Second.
You got a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none. So thank you, Robbie.
Thank you. Invite all of you to come out and see what we're all about out there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's the mayor. I right on the starting line and had a big engine blow up and. Oh, that was heart attacks.
Yeah.
Tell me when that's gonna happen so I can come watch.
Yeah, we want to be out there when that takes place.
I don't wanna be standing on
Okay.
the
It
start.
was right next to me. Oh, Jesus, it was loud.
Move through item 2. We're now on to item 3, which is a resolution with the sister city, and I'm not even going to come close to trying to pronounce that. What? Okay, well, thank you.
Sister city in Poland, how's that?
So, which happened to be page 44 of
Yes, page 44.
the packet. Okay. Counselor Halverson, please.
So this came about, I don't know how many of you know Father Yarek from Assumption Catholic Church. He's from Koźniski, Poland, and he approached me. He would like to do a sister city. They've already passed a resolution on their side. I talked to Mike Matthews. He said there were 3 options for sister cities. One's the full out paid version. What was the middle one, do you recall? And then there was just a basic resolution, which doesn't cost us anything. If anything, maybe we'll just send them some Roswell swag and stuff. But talk to like the foreign exchange student people, maybe we can work out some program. We can maybe exchange students. And it's just a kind thing to do, you know, just reach out to the other side of the world. We've done sister cities in the past, I think.
Right.
And what's good about it is it doesn't cost us anything.
We got to take a trip.
Well, Hess and I already. We'll go represent Roswell. Take them this bag. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like it's in a wonderful area.
yeah.
Yeah, it's southeastern Poland, so it's approaching Russia, but they're not problematic.
They actually have a video. It's pretty neat. They have a nuclear power plant there.
This day.
I asked him, why did you move from there to here? But, you know, because they have lakes and everything.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Could I just ask a question?
Yes, sir. Counselor.
And in the agreement of the charter of friendships, that's what I wanted to ask about. I believe in the sister city, we work for Rheinfeld at Hamburg, Germany. But in the actual agreement, under the financing of the agreed activities, there are 2 portions. I just wanted some clarifications on that because, you know, what are we really looking at, you know, with those financial obligations being there?
Nothing.
My question is, why are they there?
This was the language that Poland sent to us. And when I reviewed it based on how we're doing it through a resolution, this is not really a contract per se. It's just an understanding. It's non-binding. I mean, what we're really saying is that we're not going to make them pay for us and vice versa.
And then my only other question was at the very bottom, this charter of friendship is signed on July 2nd, 2020. Yeah, just wondering.
Did they get back with you on that?
They never got back to me on that. So I think there might have been something lost in translation, but I think the idea was that there'd be some sort of signing ceremony in July somehow. We're waiting to hear back from them about that, but.
And our resolution is on page 30.
Right, yes.
Missing it. What page is that on?
It's 46 or 47.
Okay.
I decided the thing to do across the world.
Yeah.
I want to go.
Okay.
Already
Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah. Please forgive me.
No further questions or discussion. May I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for sister city affiliation with the commune of I don't know about that. Konieczki. Konieczki,
Poland.
They're
Poland.
at the top of this page. There's,
Consider and recommend to city council approval and adoption to be added to the consent agenda, right?
Father,
Can I just say, adding it to the consent agenda sort of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do?
exactly, exactly.
well, I need Father Yarrick to come too.
I'm not on your committee, but
No, I was just thinking with Father Yaris, one of them.
Well, that's kind of why I said to add it to the consent agenda in a question format. So just to be added to the full agenda.
I'll second it to the full agenda.
Any further discussion?
It's a question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Next item on the agenda is resolution, needs to be changed because it's already a resolution that's passed. It's resolution 22-76, which is the municipal infrastructure reimbursement. I believe that Mr. Mavers on there.
There it is. It's in the handout.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and committee members. In your packet, it is correct. We've changed resolution 2386 as we're moving forward. Next slide, please. Again, the previous action by the city council at the last meeting, the October meeting, they did vote to approve and adopt resolution 2165, which established the municipal infrastructure reimbursement program. And as we've discussed repeatedly, no budget was established at that time, and the implementation measures were not quite complete. Next slide. The purpose of the program, of course, is to facilitate development of single-family market rate projects by partially offsetting cost of construction. Next slide. Again, the program highlights, just real quickly, city council is allowed to establish a budget annually should they determine the need for additional single-family residential development. The development agreement is required currently for each of the projects, and the reimbursements are available only for fully installed, completed, and accepted municipal infrastructure. Next slide. The disbursement of the funds we have discussed repeatedly is that will occur only after the certificate of occupancy for each unit is completed. And the previous budget of $750,000 was intended to provide reimbursement for required infrastructure for up to 70 single-family residential units and 10 multifamily residential units, or any combination there. On November 17th, the legal committee voted 3-0 in favor of the previous resolution, recommend the item be sent to finance. On December 8th, finance committee voted 2-1. At the last city council meeting, the city council referred the municipal infrastructure program back to legal committee for further review and to consider options for revision and implementation. And
here we go.
In your packet, you have a list. One of the items that we've been discussing was a possibility of fee waivers or a fee holiday. I believe that is on the agenda for discussion at later on this agenda. We did have what was in your packet was not the latest version of that. I have produced a secondary version a few days ago, which includes not only I added an additional assumption for renovation to a single family home, should somebody decide to do a renovation or a rebuild. And then I also added planning and zoning fees associated with residential development as for consideration.
That is for a discussion action item. We'll get to that. It seems that council can't make up its mind what it wants to do here. And we've seen this at this committee more than once. It was sent back here. There was a lot of discussion about the legality of how this program works or doesn't work. There are anti-donation issues, there are procurement issues that I haven't seen anything that's come back, told me any different than that. And so one of the things that I discussed or talked to maybe a different resolution to the MERP, which is this fee holiday. And so that's one of the reasons that that's on the agenda for discussion purposes, to see if that is a way to replace something that, according to our legal counsel, we can't do, because we're not home ruled. We're governed by state statute, state law. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing that any of us can do about it. And so, but I would like to have some, I see we've got several counselors here today, and have your input, if you would so desire, about where we want to go with this, and sending it back to council so that we can get some resolution and stop bantering this thing like a tennis ball over the back and over the court, volley, 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 because that doesn't help anyone. So,
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Arnold.
In my mind, this is the cart before the horse. Is there any way we can actually move this item to actually be discussed after the holidays?
I think the holiday is going to be discussion only.
Okay.
There will be no action on that until we move it to an action item. I think the discussion purposes is to give us knowledge today, and so that we can bring it back and have further discussion about that.
Well,
and then send that on to, however it comes shaped, hopefully send that on to full council.
so I'm not confident in actually voting or making a decision on this until I've heard what other options are being considered.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about today.
So I kind of need to,
So,
at that point, I'm holding out.
so I guess what you're asking for,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, is the next item number 4 needs to be moved or tabled. I like the word table, by the way.
Which means we can come back to it at this
And then-
meeting.
Yeah, and we can come back to it after we have our discussion, because there's a possibility that it's going to be amended and going to have to be cleaned up anyway. But we don't know that till we have our discussion.
Correct.
So can we move this to after our discussion back on? I don't get on here.
I'm item 10.
Convention Center, okay, fee holiday structure. To item 10B. After we do item 10B.
Non-action items is an issue with fixing it.
Yeah, that's what we're going to focus on.
That's your motion, so be it.
Well, I think that right now, that's the best one I can come up with.
Okay. I have a second now. Any further discussion? Councilor Perry.
Attached in your underneath agenda item number 4 are my some information that seems to be part of what we considered in the holiday discussion. There's nothing that would keep this committee from just moving the holiday discussion up to now. You got these folks that are here. I'm just saying there's nothing. You can do the opposite. You can bring your holiday up.
That's not the motion, Mr. Chairman.
That's not the motion, or is that the motion? And further discussion, I have a motion to move this to
After item 10B.
after item 10B.
Because this stuff that's in defense of my standing firm on the motion, Mr. Chair, is although this is attached to the packet,
It didn't belong there.
it doesn't belong. Correct. And we need to discuss that in depth, because I know some people have also discussed waiving these fees, which would not get us into the anti-donation clause, because these fees are our fees.
Correct.
We're not cutting a check.
Correct. Maybe.
Yeah, whenever you cut the check, that's when you run into the anti-donation clause. That's my motion.
Need a second? Or do you want
I
that?
need a second.
Oh, she already did.
I will have some discussion about
But
that.
I also,
I will vote no on this issue. I want to move it up, get it over with and get going.
okay, that's what I was about.
But you all want to make that motion. We can vote on that motion, but I do not agree with that motion.
Call the vote.
So I will have the clerk call the roll, please.
Wait. Sorry. Clarification, you're saying that you would prefer it to be moved up?
Move it up. Let's get it going.
Okay, all right.
But you've asked for it to be as after item 10B. That's the motion on the floor. We got a second. And so
Do it that way.
I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Can't do it that way.
Chair Hildebrand,
No.
Counselor Honor,
No.
Counselor Ordesa,
No.
and Counselor Coin.
Yes.
Motion fails 3-1. Now, if I can have another motion.
To do what?
Mr. Chair,
To move the 10B.
I would like to make a motion to move item 10B, fee schedule holiday to 4, I'm kind of making this up as I go along, to 4A.
Yep, that'll work.
Yes.
That'll work.
Now, this
I
is,
have a motion to move item 10B to item 4A. Item 4 will now become item 4B.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
can you give me just a second? And now we are going to do.
This one? Yeah, you don't. You just have to. Because you have to. Yeah.
All righty, we're ready. Thank you. Chairman Hildebrand,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold,
Yes.
Counselor Ordesa,
Yes.
and Counselor Coin.
No.
Motion passes 3-1.
Correct.
So
This is right. I'm sorry. You have this right.
we'll now talk about the holiday structure, Mr. Mavers, in conjunction, I guess, with council.
Yes, or do you mind if I? Go for it. Mr. Chair, so I've done some research and I did talk with this commission briefly about this. The only, so long as we are categorically wiping out a fee, we're good to go. What we can't do is say we're going to waive the fee for the first 50 people. Something like that.
We can't limit it.
Right, so.
We can limit it by time.
Yeah, so we could say for the next 24 months, we have no fees, totally acceptable, so long as it applies to everybody equally. The case on point had to do with the state liquor law. The legislature was there. Sorry, Mayor. That said that if that certain liquor license holders would get a GRT exemption, everybody else still has a GRT. The state Supreme Court said that sure sounds like a gift to the liquor industry. Now, if the legislature wanted to do it correctly, they would have to go back and just eliminate GRT, that part of GRT category. So, so that right here is, in the nutshell, how we could accomplish this. And I'll let Mr. Mevers talk about the actual, because the numbers look pretty incredible.
I guess so one question for the city attorney, though. As part of your discussion, are we talking about now waiving all fees, including those for commercial, industrial, and institutional development? Or are we just can we categorically waive the fees for residential development, single family, and multifamily? So it would be any distinct fee we have, we can cut. So the city is under no obligation legally to have any of these fees. So if we just said, you know what, we just don't like single family plan review permitting period, we could eliminate it or, under the proper system. But it would, and you can put a sunset clause on the elimination very comfortably. But you can't say, only the first 50 people. So again, it has to be blanket.
So what we're doing is we're setting up not only new development, but any redevelopment or like I put here on here, renovations to existing homes, things like that. Anything having to do with residential development, we can put into an ordinance, but we waive it for the entire community, not just certain builders and developers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say waive it. I would say we eliminate for a time period. Elimination is the key. It actually has to disappear from the books.
It's removed, we can fix the timeframe, remove it. So this would support infill projects, it would support rehab projects.
And new development also.
New development as well. It would be more encompassing and not just to developers only. It can be to individuals that are building their homes.
Individuals, small, everybody.
Yep. So.
So if there's something the council thinks really does need to be charged, so for example, electrical permits, we absolutely want to charge that. We just need to make sure everybody, whatever need an electrical permit gets charged. We can't eliminate for one developer.
Right. So we can pick out a list, what items that we would want to eliminate for a period of time. It doesn't have to be all or none. What Mr. Meavers has provided here with is a list of items that the city currently charges for fees and hookup, correct? Because the water service fee is the meter itself, is it not?
Meter and the hookup.
Meter and the hookup.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, and I can make a special comment about that. It's my view generally that the meter fee is not problematic in spite of the enterprise structure. So first, if there is a shortfall because of the number of new hookups, the general fund would be the one filling the gap. And second, it is talking with management and waters management. I mean, if somebody gets a new water meter, it pays itself in a year. Right. On average. So
usage will.
Yeah, usage will. So there's really no harm to the city getting more people on the system. It's quite beneficial in fact. Within reason, if we got 8,000, we'd have a horrible infrastructure problem, but if we're looking at hundreds, it'd be an improvement for the system.
Councilor Corn.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not a builder, I'm a developer. So let me ask a question, I guess, of Mr. Mavers, I don't know, but if you permit electrical, plumbing, gas, and HVAC, for instance, on the handout, item number 2 on the first page, and the same thing shows up throughout, and I just did a quick look. So does that also, so if we waive the fee, what's going to be our way of seeing if we need to have an inspector go out and look at the inspection of these different events?
We're only waiving the fee, or we're only eliminating the fee for a short term. We're not eliminating the process.
Right.
Everything still has to go through plan check. Everything still has to go through the review. Everything still has to be inspected. Okay, the only thing at this point we're talking about, and that's why I gave you multiple different scenarios here, so you can see how it would affect the rebuilder or the renovator, how it would do with small, medium, and large houses. And then also, again, I added the planning and zoning fees associated with single-family development. After thinking about all of this, we do get a number of applications coming in where people are consolidating lots. So they'd be doing a summary plat or other things that would be part of it that will also help drive forward the development. So at this point in time, yes, the process will remain in place for plan check, permitting, inspections, and everything else. The only thing we're talking about, just eliminating, at least in a short term, is the fees themselves.
Well, I think it's in state statute, and I thought about it a minute, that require all these different inspections.
Yes.
Right. She'll get the inspection, but you just won't pay.
Well, I got it, but I just want to make sure that because we do one thing, it doesn't cause a ripple effect on something else.
Yeah.
Not the way I believe that the city attorney and I are talking about structuring an ordinance that would provide for, again, just the elimination of the fees based upon a timeframe approved by the city council.
Councilor.
So two questions, just for making sure clarification. So kind of depending on what the customer is doing, it depends on the elimination that they specifically receive. Like if you can see that there's higher rates. Again, I'm trying to make sure that which ones, I think what I'm trying to, because I have several different ones. So, how does that pertain? Where does a developer come in on this as far as?
Everything, if you look on page 3 of the handout, right underneath the, where it says total fee estimate of 80, short explanation there. All fees for building are based on valuation. So when somebody comes, that's why you see greater fees, higher fees for larger buildings. The electrical, plumbing, gas, HVAC, those are based upon what's called fixture counts or fixture units and things like that come through. So until we see an actual set of plans, and each plan set is going to be different. So again, I offer these only as examples or typicals. Okay, the actual amount that will be waived for every plan set that comes in is going to be dependent upon what's actually on those plan sets.
Okay, so it may be something that we may want to consider picking specific items that are consistently eliminated throughout any of the process. Because you're going to have a hard time of making it fair and balanced unless we actually have, just example, let's just say that we actually eliminated frontage fee for sewer, frontage fee for water, frontage fee for parks, water service fee, sewer tap. And that's what we actually provided to everyone. So that way it's consistent and fair across the board and whatever's chosen. I just kind of wanted to throw that thought out there. I don't really have an opinion and, because I know as you're working through this, there'll be a lot of discussion and clarification. The second item that I have is having this been thrown around, and I'm sure there's been some thought. I'm interested more in the timeframes that are being considered.
Next discussion.
Like on here?
Not on this, but on the body. That's what we've got to decide.
So, Mr. Chair, Councilor Arnold, this is a very easy ordinance to write. It'll be a one-pager saying these sections are multiple pages, but practically one page. Just this section, fees now zero. This section, fees now zero. It'll just go down a list, and the last sentence will be this ordinance shall sunset in X number of months. And that's just a policy decision for you guys. It really makes no difference from legal's perspective.
So there's got to be another resolution.
Yeah, it'll have to come back as a resolution.
Okay.
No. Everything would revert back to the way it is in the number of months is how I currently have anticipated. That way there's no.
No, but we're voting on specific timing. Yeah, and it has to be put somewhere because it can't just be out there floating around for somebody to come 6 months after it expired. Oh, and we got to go back and try to collect those fees on the last 6 months.
And here's the question also is that let's assume someone gets halfway through the project and stops. Now what are you going to do?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, whenever you draft the resolution that we're going to consider, that would have specific timeframes in there that you put language in there that says that these fees are waived when you get all the approvals till the completion of the project, and then put a time limit on that completion. That way you've got it. It's the holiday is here and here, and that's okay if your project continues on down the road, but you don't want somebody to come along that's got a building and walls up, but they don't have, and I don't know exactly what's going to work, because right now might be able to not get doors, may not be able to get windows. You might not be able to get shingles for the roof, whatever. Based on today's business environment, we got to give them a chance to complete the project, but we don't want it to be sitting there 5 years from now.
I think the key that you're talking, there's two things I think that we can build into the ordinance. Number one, the fee waiver is based upon permit issuance. Once the permit is issued, then you have up to 180 days plus an additional 1 or 2 180-day extensions on top of that. So if we run into supply chain problems, it won't matter. The fees are already waived. Okay, they were paid or not paid. They became effective when the building permit was issued. Okay, so construction completion could extend out to actually up to probably 2 full years if that's what it took. The second thing is, and unless Hess tells me I'm wrong, there's always a possibility that as we near the sunset date, we decide to extend the program, okay, based upon need.
Right, there does not have to be a sunset date. I just prefer those as a tidy method to, it seems like the will right now is for it to be a set period of time. And when there's not a sunset date, it becomes difficult to reestablish fees. So it's a drafting preference, but a total policy question. I can go either way for you guys.
I think we can build that into the original ordinance, the possibility of either extension and make it very, very clear that as soon as the building permits are issued, then you're locked in with the fee waivers.
The clock starts ticking.
But the clock starts ticking.
Well, I don't know. We got some builders in the room. Developer in the room. We got any builders in the room? I've noticed around town houses that are under construction and they get to a spot and they just quit and still don't have windows in it. You know, they've got the structure built, roofs on, and the doors are in, but there's no windows. Well, that tells me that they can't get the window. And some of the stuff has been for months.
I understand that, Councilor. You know, that maybe that's going to clear up someday, but I think that's for discussion when we start building this thing and decide where we're going to be there and how we're going to make this thing move forward. And I think right now we're trying to understand, here's the fees and here's the things that we might be able to do, and then direct Mr. Mavers and our counselor to come back with something that is moldable, that we can all look at as the committee and also as a full council and decide where we want to go. That's where I think the test is right now. Councilor Arnold first.
So I just actually wanted to say that I'm actually very excited about this concept, and I appreciate all of those who brought it forward. A lot of my concern was in Ward 1, issues with infill and providing opportunity for individuals to expand into infill. I think this is actually a great idea that it actually kind of gets government out of the way and incentivizes individuals, builders, developers, people to remodel. I think this is a great idea. So I am very grateful. Thank you.
Councilor Best.
So mine is really not a question, but we have the ability and we have the goodness of some builders, whether he's a contractor or not, he's still a builder because he does the same thing. And as lawyer here, is there any way we can let them have some input, or are you going to ask them to a meeting to communicate with you guys? Because they've been here every step of the way, willing to help the city to get something established. And I think we need to have enough etiquette to ask them here, ask them back.
I'm going to let Mr. Mitchell's attorney sit here for another 6 hours to bill Mr. Mitchell. So that his attorney can take another vacation to a place that's different than he's never been to before, but has always wanted to attend. So
I appreciate it being moved up the agenda because we still have a lot to do.
Well, we have bantered this thing around and I'm tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it because we've gone nowhere. And shame on us. Because, you know, where we're at right now, and I will tell you all, and this is not scolding anyone. This is where I was in October of 21. That the city look at this in a different mold and create something like this document right here. But it didn't happen. So here we are today. So I've had conversation with Mr. Mitchell. I think he's in agreement with this. Are you not, Mr. Mitchell?
I have some reserves, but I'll wait till we get into the next conversation.
Yeah. And I think this molding of this, we're going to ask for input, not just from our staff, city attorney, but we're going to ask for input from builders and developers because we don't know how to do it. And that will come, and it's going to come relatively soon. I'd like to see this at next legal committee.
Yep.
That this is done so we can keep moving on and stop wasting time.
Mr. Chairman, our team, community development, with respect to the CUP ordinance as well as to the respect to the upcoming fugitive dust ordinance, we've already developed a list. We've already put our builders and developers on notice that this was coming. And in fact, for both of those, we've already established dates to sit in here and meet with everybody and take their input. So we can just add this to the list and make sure that that is done before we can take our existing list, make sure the same people are invited to input on this, all of our building and development community, and establish another date for a roundtable discussion and get their input before the next meeting. I don't see any reason we can't do that.
You've got a busy calendar.
Yes, sir.
Very busy. So if everyone's in agreement with that type of stuff moving forward.
His hand's been.
My turn?
It's tired.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mavers, you also included the planning and zoning fees in your latest rendition.
Yes, sir.
Or we're not talking about leaving it in, or, excuse me, having a holiday on those, are we?
I went ahead and put those in there because many of those fees are associated with single-family residential development, in particular the platting. Occasionally a zone change is required. Occasionally, what we're coming up with in some of the infill areas too is we've got irregular shaped lots that may require a variance in order to provide for appropriate setbacks and other things. I did feel that this was in some areas. We also have unused easements that the city has that could be added to this. So I threw all of this in there. This is where, I mean, even all the way down to an address assignment for those lots, those parcels that have no addresses. So all of these things are currently tied, at least peripherally, to the development or the building of single family and multifamily projects. So from community development's perspective, it is appropriate for you to consider a fee waiver on these with respect to single family and multifamily development as well.
Okay.
I think what you're going to see here, Councilor Corner, what I'm hoping to see is this list that council will have the opportunity to determine what you want to halt it. And it will be, because if you recall, we had a list. I don't know whether that was here or was a finance that had all these different fees of 3 or 4 pages.
Yes.
And that was the finance. Some of those fees were the same things that we're going to be talking about in this holiday.
I don't think they're on those items listed were part of this. Maybe they were.
They were. They had the developer fees were in there, even though they weren't. But I do recall some of those were on that list. And so.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you asking for us to give staff direction to bring back a resolution? And to, I mean, what we're really talking about here is the funding side of this thing. We're not messing with the entire scope of the municipal infrastructure reimbursement program.
No, this would be a entirely separate program from the MERP. And we'll have to, I guess I got a question for council. Is this going to be can we do this as a resolution or does this need to be an ordinance? It needs to be an ordinance.
A lot of these are resolutions, some are ordinance. Some ordinance would be cleaner. And then, yeah, this isn't even a program. This is just a law.
Okay. So just to throw my 2 cents out for what it's worth, if you want to have a fee holiday, Mr. Chairman, I think the various fees and charges as depicted on this January 24th is probably the kind of direction they need, but I am not interested in waiving planning and zoning fees. Separate issue in my book.
Well, that could be for further discussion when it comes back and.
I mean, I think you're in favor of that. I don't know that. But I haven't heard from the other 2 committee members if they're in favor of that or against that, or because that does all the stuff that I think the original thought was on this thing is to get Roswell moving. We can't donate money. And we have a big infill problem in this community. Maybe this will encourage some infill in some of these vacant lots around town. And this is a better plan. Me.
Council.
So I think I'm been pretty open about how supportive I am as far as the details. Until I see the time frame and the specifics, the only thing I'm in support of at this time is moving it to a committee to get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just stay here. We're working on it. Let's bring this.
It's a non-action item.
Well, but you got to have it to go with the MERP.
Well, they're 2 separate issues.
I don't agree because he just said that it's going to take some look at to see how it goes together.
We will have to, again, and unless I'm incorrect here, council and I need to sit down and we will develop the ordinance specifically for this, have it, run it through our local builders and developers, get their feedback, and then have it here in 4 weeks, ready for your review at that point in time. And we will take input. I have received some input about the length of time that some of the builders would like to see. I have received some input about the, at least in part, the reason for the planning and zoning fees is I did have a couple of questions from some of our smaller builders who are building homes in infill areas about lot consolidations, about variances, about other things, and wanted to know if those would be included as part of the fee waivers, the fee holiday as well. So it's I believe there's good rationale for at least some of the planning and zoning fees. We'd like to bring you a comprehensive ordinance back and then y'all can discuss it. And if there's something that you're absolutely against, we can strike it and then move it forward to city council for adoption.
This is a very cumbersome, complicated issue. And what you're doing, if you insist on continuing on with item number 4, and then later on coming back with an ordinance that may or may not include the proper language to kick this in, then we just need to get the whole package in here, Mr. Chairman, give them plenty of time to review it before we get here, and then wrap it up. I'm with you. This thing's been talked about for years around here. And I think that we're getting close. I'm not sure we're there yet, but I don't know. I haven't seen the language yet. But I think that if we want to have a positive outcome for this meeting, then we need to give staff direction. If the fee holiday is granted at a later date, then those are the fees that I would prefer waiving all the planning and zoning fees, I think they need to stay in place. Some programs may require zoning change, some may not. And so those that it does not, it doesn't matter, right? And so, and you still need to have the planning. We still have to have approval of the plans, even though we're waiving the fee.
Right.
I just think that that's a better direction to send them out of here and let them meet with the developers and the contractors and realtors, whoever else thinks they've got an interest in this thing. And let's get it all down on paper and we can go through the next series of stuff. As you'll see in a minute, I like to go in and change stuff. But we can't piecemeal this thing. We gotta get it put together in a package and bring it all up and I'm with you. I hate being bogged down. Let's get this thing moving, but it's not in a movable condition right now, in my opinion. I yield.
Councilor Perry.
I just had a question. I'd asked Mr. Item to call and to talk with the new attorney that's up there with planning up at the New Mexico Municipal League. That's the one that's done procurement forever. What did he say when you?
I've called him and he hasn't called me back. He's very busy at the session, is my understanding.
Okay. I'd like some communication with him. When I spoke with them, I told them very little. I said, I can't represent the city on this because nothing's been done for the city, but, would like some information on it. So I would like to make sure that our municipal league is in key with us. I guess I'm ready to get on something like if this is what it takes and move it and get it done. But I think I have some confusion in my head as to why it is that, like some of the other fees we're not allowed to do so with, but we'll be able to with this one. So I just want to make sure that we're completely in line moving forward.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't want to come back later and we approve this and find out we've got a legal issue. Whatever it takes to get that legal opinion prior to council moving it ahead, that's what we need to do.
And Mexico Municipal League has, their attorneys are at our disposal as well, so.
Probably for the next 60 days, I don't know what they'll be.
Yeah, this is true, but.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Let's talk about specific direction, maybe beyond whatever I said. I don't think we need a formal motion or anything.
No, we're not making a motion.
Just let them go do their thing and we'll look at the end product.
Yep.
If I can, I'll ask for some clarification. So Councilor, notwithstanding you're not wanting the zoning piece, for drafting purposes, it might be easier to include every possible fee and then you guys as a committee vote to strike whatever you don't want.
I think looking at the whole, as I would say, laundry list.
Works for me, Mr.
Put it there and let council decide.
Works for me.
It shall
just 1 of 10. So when it comes time to get there, so.
Mr. Chairman, whenever they bring this back, these 10 items that are listed here on the planning and zoning, and there may be more.
Right.
Somehow be distinguished in the document. We'll pass it that way, then we'll clean it up before it gets to city council. So it makes it easier for me, so I don't get confused about a frontage fee and a plat map.
It's going to have to be very thorough so that there's no question. It's not a thing that somebody goes, well, maybe I can interpret it this way. No. It's not going to be that way.
Okay.
It's going to be black and white on a piece of paper, and this is what it is. So that leaves nothing to interpretation that could favor one person and not another.
No, can't do that because that's a violation of the Mexico Constitution.
I think Mr. Mavers and Mr. Anthony have the marching orders.
Okay.
Loud and clear, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So you want a motion now?
No motion to make?
Yeah, you got one
Discussion
to
item
make.
only.
Well, okay.
Because this was a non-action item. We moved to. Now we will move on to item 4B.
Move with postpone item 4B. Subject to further input.
Motion.
Postpone and table, please. Please explain the difference between
We have
postpone.
tabled, now we're bringing it back.
So tabling is keeping it here.
Here,
And
today.
then postponing is sending it to
I
the
like
next.
tabling better than postpone it anyway. Move to table.
We table.
Keeps it here in this meeting,
In this-
postpones
yeah.
it.
Sends it to the next meeting.
Right, it's already been tabled once here. We're bringing it back.
Never voted on it.
And so it's back on the agenda as to item
4B, I guess.
4B. That's what we moved it to, was to 4B.
Postponing means to the next meeting.
Correct, that's what,
Oh, Mary Angel.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. Then we got into this tabling deal.
you're asking to vote, your motion is to postpone the resolution 22-76.
I must, Mr. Chair, I must confess, my reluctance is I actually have no support for the MERP, so I don't know that I want to continue talking about something, and only because but I don't actually think it's beneficial at the point because of procurement prevailing wage. I don't think it's even beneficial to offer it to our. Someone's cooking. I was like, oh my gosh, CPR.
Mr. Chairman, the problem, I mean, I understand her concern,
I get it.
but if you vote no on the proposal that's before us, that leaves the rest of it all still on the books.
Right, and that's why I'm trying to analyze what to do there.
Well, that's the reason why you need, in my opinion, we need to postpone and bring the whole package back, because all we've got, or at least all that's in my packet, is on page 49, which is the funding portion of it.
That's correct.
Not the whole resolution.
That is
So
correct.
we postpone this action, and we can come back and have further discussion on a fee holiday.
Because resolution
Or table it.
2165, which is
I beg
what?
to differ with the counselor, but tabling motion usually means it stays till it's brought back up
in this meeting.
in this committee, period.
I'm not here to argue. I don't think that the Attorney General's going to come down here and throw us out for either one. So
He's too busy doing other stuff.
that's right.
Now he's got a session going,
Yeah.
and he's asking for more
But
people.
to what Counselor Horn is talking about, all we have before us is the funding for the current year. And what he's talking about is resolution 2165, which is not before us today.
Correct.
Right, second.
And
I'll get you, I'll keep you out of trouble.
Can you clarify that one more time?
Yes.
sure, what's before us today, Jim, is resolution 22-76, which is the funding for the MERP for the current year. What's not before us is 2165, which was the establishment of MERP. So that's what's before us today. So what he's suggesting is if we postpone this, bring them both back.
Including,
Let Councilor Corn just finish up his comment.
including whatever language that actually becomes the funding mechanism for the MERP as a tax holiday, and we'll put book stops on when it starts and when it ends, and language that you guys hopefully will be sitting at the table when it's discussed. We'll have a start date or some understanding of what that is and an ending date, and we can always we can change the dates.
Correct.
It's an easy thing to do. It has to come back. And maybe, I don't know, I'll talk to council and Mr. Mavers, but maybe part of this needs to be done in ordinance and part of it needs to be in resolution, because I don't want to have to advertise and do all that stuff if we put it all in an ordinance. I mean, I don't know that you can.
They need to determine that.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it'll be an ongoing living deal, subject to whatever date that we pick out there. And trust me, it's not going to be 6 months or anything stupid like that. Or at least I hope not.
Well, we'll discuss that to it.
Right.
So, Mr. Mitchell, please.
So we have some questions that we've been waiting between, I mean, you had counsel, he was talking about counsel a minute ago. I mean, there's some things missing that we haven't had answers on yet. So I think Mr. Corn's correct. I think if we could postpone it, it would give us time to make it all fit together and possibly have an offset with this other program.
Yep.
That's what the object is trying to get accomplished.
I'm trying to get there.
Get that and get it done. As I told you at last council meeting, let's get this done now, so that we move ahead here and show that Roswell is ready for some real growth in our housing market. And so I have a motion to postpone.
I don't like that. I like tabling better.
Resolution 27-76.
I second it.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion by any other counselors? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. There being none, so moved.
Mr. Chairman, in part of my defense, a tabling motion means the item is in the committee, but it's not going to be enacted unless in the legislature it was up to the chairman to bring it back, and usually the bill sponsors. And we tabled stuff sometimes in the motion of table indefinitely, which has the effect of killing the legislation, is not a proper motion, but we used it all the time up there. And so tabling, this postponing deal makes no sense to me. So
I don't know what Robert's rules calls for.
Well, I don't have my copy. See you later.
Go ahead.
I don't have my.
Jim, I'm sorry that we got it over with. Your attorney's only going to be able to go to California.
Bring it back next week.
You know, it's a tax holiday. It's a fee holiday as well.
Yeah.
There won't be any fees for that, but we're glad you're coming back.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Finally.
It's now 6:13.
This mixing apples and oranges is
So now we are on item 5, which is an ordinance 23XX sign amendment.
Yeah.
Page 52 in your packet.
Yeah. He's here. Let's go.
And Councilor Halverson.
I can speak very quickly to it so this was, Councilor Halverson asked me to draft this to my notes. It is literally it's not even 2 sentences worth of additions. This will make our sign ordinance consistent with the state regulations, NMAC 18-21-5.1 that governs signs along highways. Second and Main Street are those highways. So what we've changed is video elements are allowed on on-premise signs. These are signs that post only information about events and businesses on the land the sign is on. This past year, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld on-premise restrictions. So there's no First Amendment issue regarding that. Second, the state law actually requires that digital messages dwell for 8 seconds instead of the 5 in our ordinance. I think it's smarter for us to not confuse the advertising public. And that's really all this amendment does. It's a very tight change. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So it continues to allow for video though.
Yeah. So it allows for video for on use. So
allows video for on-site.
On-premise. Yeah, what's called on-premise. And on-premise means video about the premises for the premises. There is an exception to that, generally speaking, in the state reg that we also have already in the ordinance that there's an emergency message or some sort of public service announcement. We can throw it up on there too.
Those on-premises signs are not for hire.
Correct.
Did you get
Video.
a copy?
Okay, so if you want to have a video, it can only be on a sign that is on your property about the activity.
About your property, and nobody, nothing else. So if you wanted to run one for cancer awareness,
Nope. Yeah, the only exception would be PSAs that, I think DOT puts them up on the video stuff. On the highways, that's pretty normal.
Counselor Beth?
My question is this including Main Street? And have you talked to US DOT and asked them
Always keep it.
if they could be there? Because moving signs have a tendency to take away from drivers, how far in from the highway.
That's all in that ordinance.
It's already in the ordinance. This isn't changing any of that ordinance at all.
Right, and so the state DOT regulations are actually incorporating the federal DOT regulations. So it's just a big old lasagna of law. That's my quote.
So all we're doing here is just changing really from 5 seconds to 8 seconds.
Yep, and videos on premise only.
Right, which do not conflict with.
And there's no there was an Arizona case last year that challenged that, and the Supreme Court said you can do it, which I was a little surprised by, but that's the law now. So there you go.
Yeah. John, if this is in conflict with state rules, regulations, statutes, state statute will override this.
Correct. Yeah, so it's more of a cleanup provision in that regard.
Yeah.
The 5 to 8 part.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
Juanita had a question.
Sure, our members of the committee, does it mean we're not allowed to put like now hiring on our video screen?
Yeah, you could, if it's your video screen on your property about your business.
Okay. I just want to make sure because we have one.
Mr. Mayor.
But you can't put a sign on your property advertising the Veterans Day Parade.
You can as long as it's not video.
Yeah, it can't be a video. It can be electronic, static display.
So just flash on and off.
Yep, for 8 seconds. At least.
Yeah.
That's the last for 8 seconds. Okay.
That answer your question, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, no video. Just video, it just means a moving picture camera. Moving picture.
Yeah.
You have girls, if you have a bar and you have girls, exotic dancers, you can put them up there on,
Well, there's a
on your
window,
video.
I'm sure.
I mean, I'm sure, where's Counselor Perry? You do something to get him going.
I am with Main Street Roswell, and I'm not that I've seen any signs or anything. I just want to make sure we don't turn Main Street into Vegas. And I'm understanding from Councilor Halverson that that's not what's going to happen.
Well, that was my fault.
I know.
Slot machines are coming next.
So this rates, once the sign is there legally, this regulates its use.
Okay.
The sign now has to go up lawfully, which you can't under the zoning code in the Main Street historic area.
Okay, because I just didn't, I didn't get the whole thing sent to me, so I just wasn't sure. I didn't get the red line one or whatever. But what I'm just trying to figure out, the sign that's on the north side of town next to Domino's, that huge one.
Mm-hmm.
Would someone be able to put something that huge in the middle of Main Street someplace or close to Main Street?
Some of it
does talk about so far from the residents, so far from one from another, how wide they are, how big they are. I'm not good with sizes like that. So I don't even know if they're that big or, this, I really don't.
This does in no way, shape or form does this change what signs can be put up. It's only affects signs that are lawfully present.
Okay.
Okay. Just for clarification, that the community development, planning and zoning, the Article 60 is under the zoning ordinance, not under the municipal code. We were already preparing to go through the sign ordinance because we're, as we move forward, and I've had discussions with Main Street, we want to make sure that there's adequate protections so that the signs that go up in Main Street, that go up in the historic district, that go up in the railroad district, possibly even Chihuahuita, if we end up doing a district map over that area, are all consistent with the architectural thematics that would be established by that district. Okay. These electronic message boards in particular are just from a planning perspective, incompatible with many of these special districts. And so would there be anything that would prohibit us from modifying the ordinance further to provide additional protections?
You only have to amortize signs that are already present, probably over a 60-month horizon, but otherwise you're good to go.
Okay, so there could be a sunset clause on anything that was put up that already exists.
Yes, it already exists and you want to phase it out, we have to give them time.
What I propose,
Stay with that.
yeah, what I propose has nothing to do with Main Street or adding more signs or anything. It's just,
That's all it's doing.
yeah, that's all it's doing.
It's all it's doing what's right here.
Trying to do, yeah.
One slide.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, just out of jest, I'm glad we don't have a newspaper cartoonist right now, because back in the day when sign ordinance was going on, that's all that was in the newspaper. It was a long time ago.
Mr. Mayor.
You know, somewhere on the sign ordinance, we ought to have something that when a company goes out of business, that they can leave the pole up. They ought to have to take the sign down, because we have an awful lot of signs around here that are ready to fall over. And
the wind blows.
You know,
those signs are grandfathered in.
Here, somebody said it.
Well, they're grandfathered in. All I'm saying is leave the pole up, but take all the stuff that's blowing down off.
Yeah.
You know, they tear down the old sign and leave the pole up so you don't have to.
Actually, I was researching the state ordinance, sir. And there is a provision for both buildings that have gone out of business and on-site signage, as well as for off-site, off-premise advertising, that when somebody goes out of business, they must remove it, take it down, everything else. So we could adopt those sections as well, if that's appropriate.
Councilor Corn, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move, I already turned my page. I'm sorry. An ordinance to amend section 60 of the zoning code.
As a public.
And advertise it for public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none, so moved. It is now 6:22. I've sat in this chair for 2.5 hours and I need to get up for 5 minutes. Whatever.
You can do that. You're the chairman.
I'm afraid we're going to be here for another.
This next deal could take some time, or it could be real quick.
Okay, are we ready? Call this meeting back to order.
Okay.
Next item, we're recording.
Yes, it's been recorded.
Fine, okay, thank you. Next item, item number 6, which is an ordinance amending the city's administrative code, which is item 6 in your packet, but with a supplement that was given to us.
Yeah.
So,
Like this on.
Yeah.
That's it. Hey, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll go ahead and start.
Please, Councilor Corn.
Mr. Chairman, I worked on this quite a bit since we had our meeting back on.
Workshop last week.
Yeah. And I made some changes. So I want your input. I don't think it's done yet. That's just personally, if you all think it's done, then I'm good for it. And there's no pride of authorship. If there's something I put in here that you don't like, I'll go fix it. Okay? So the first change
First
is,
thing I wanted to thank you for putting all that work in, to get this thing moving ahead.
yeah,
And that
this,
was the object of that work, was to get people informed.
yeah. The first item, whenever everybody gets their copy that I handed out, and I apologize for the, you need a copy or you got it? Okay.
And it's up here on the screen as well.
Typo, because on yours, you got ordinance 22-XX instead of ordinance 23.
Should be ordinance 23.
Hi, I just took whatever I started with. Sorry about that. That needs to be changed.
Just for better correction.
Correct.
Okay, so you want this to be item number,
It's still the same item we're on, but your
Ordinance number.
the ordinance number that you have on the top,
needs to be changed to what?
23
Already changed.
2366?
XX.
That's it. Okay, got it. Here we go. Third page in your document. It talks about the regular meetings of government body. My changes are in blue ink. Okay? So that makes it easy for you to find. I didn't use red. Or a majority vote of those present made by the city council. I think that's additional language that probably doesn't need to be because you get a majority of the councilors to agree, but there's some other of that in the document. So I just kept through the same drafting style. I'm not in love with that. I just shoved it in there. I can go through this and then we can go back.
Whatever you,
Okay. so we're
whatever.
gonna-
The other
Continuing on,
And just so everyone knows, go back there, Counselor, the red line items, I guess, the Division 2 rules, those were already struck when we had our workshop. That's what came out of the workshop, and that's why they're no longer in the document.
Okay.
And I just want to make clarification.
Yep, nope, that's perfect for the jet. Now, go forward to page 6 of 16 in your handout. And I struck the language on page, or I'm wanting to strike the language on line 27, city auditor. And again on 31, don't get excited yet. We're going to get to that in a minute. And then I added a clause, C, appointed officers must coordinate with other appointed officers. Because what you were in danger of, my overall view of this thing is that you'd have these different islands, and if they didn't communicate, then it's not going to work.
Correct.
And I like the word coordination, but I'm not stuck on it. We can discuss if you want to have something else. And also, you'll see where I put in a blue D down there instead of C because you have to renumber the sections. Then on line 40, I took and auditor out. And then those were kind of simple. And then on page 8, I put in the section, and there, I found another thing I need to fix. since I sent a copy to Mr. Pencil, Yatima, I'll get it straight one of these days.
Close enough.
And I didn't change anything after I sent it to him because I didn't think that was apropos, but I put a bond in for the city clerk. Okay? Because we're bonding a lot of people and some people don't have a bond. And I thought, if you're going to bond everybody, bond everybody. So I fixed that. And the other correction I need to make is on line 11. It says his, and throughout this document, I changed that to his/her.
We should clean that whole language up.
So I've got it marked in here to do that. And then,
There.
and because I added that, then you see the change in section 270 from 69, just to clean it up. And then I also put under the clerk, the clerk may create the office of deputy clerk. This is on top of page 9. As necessary with consent of the governing body. The deputy clerk shall be nominated by the clerk for approval by the governing body. If approved, the deputy clerk will employed through the clerk's office, so it makes it easy flow for the budgetary side of things.
Right.
Who may exercise the powers and duties, another typo. Am I in the right section here?
You are.
Yeah. It's on page
Okay,
9.
I need to change the word treasurer to clerk.
Yes.
In both places on line 5 and line 6. And this is,
Line 14 and 15.
well, guys, I worked on this a lot and you'll see that,
I'm not worried about it.
and I'm anxious to get more eyes to fix any other corrections, okay? And yeah, 6 and 7, and then I changed section number,
Yeah.
which should be 71. I put it down twice. I must have thought that was important. And the reason why is that all these deputies, if something happens to the principal, they just move in, if they're sick or something, then they just move in and we're still approving that appointment. So it keeps everybody on the same playing field.
Yeah, so and sorry to interrupt, Counselor. The way that the law is written for deputies is that the mayor needs to be the appointee.
Well, okay, I can put that in there, but.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's not the, sorry, guys, I
nominate for appointee.
So
you mayor should not be the appointee.
Okay, appointed by the mayor. I'll get that
That's
in
under
there.
section 269. Is that what you're saying? The mayor strike out the,
Right, so it should, so this is the office, so the deputy clerk is still in the office of the clerk.
right.
But the deputy clerk needs to be done with the mayor. Any deputy who is going to carry signature authority of the officer has to be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council.
Okay.
So that's what the wording needs to be to that effect.
Yeah,
So you-
I'll work on it. And I may not get it all put together. And
Mr. Chairman, Council Thorne, can I ask?
Yes.
Will they be under contract as well as?
Yes.
And so they are at will as well?
yes,
That's just needed that clarification.
It's legally speaking, the deputy clerks may be merit system. Any other deputy would be an appointee. So the reason there's that specific language here is because deputy clerks get this weird little carve out. So, but it's your prerogative. If you want, you can make them all appointees too.
well, all the deputies, in my opinion, need to be appointed. And I think I'm consistent.
No, so I'm saying a deputy clerk is an appointed merit system member. It's the only carve out in state law.
Okay, well, we'll talk about specifics on that. And then on 18, I put in an elected there. I don't want them operating in a vacuum. I think they need to communicate this on line 28. Elected officers, which would also include the mayor. Whoa, back on page 9 of 16.
Where?
You're in too big a hurry there, Counselor.
Page, line 18 doesn't have.
Those on my copy. It's under city manager, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's page.
2 to 8.
No,
Here we go.
and elected. How come it came out?
Because we made a couple edits to this document.
You did?
I'm making the edits that you guys tell me to as we go, so it's
Okay, all right.
it's all power technology today.
Well, you be sure to send it to me so I can go through my notes and make sure that you didn't make a mistake, which is possible. We're all human.
Highly irregular.
Okay, I also said the manager has to work with the elected officials, not only the other appointed, but the elected officials.
Yeah.
And that includes the mayor. I didn't put you specifically in there, Mayor, because I thought that across the board was a better way to go.
Yes, that verbiage needs to change to 5 and 6 for grammatic reasons, but.
Yep.
Yes, after conjunction, I don't know.
Manager shall work in conjunction. Yeah. Thank you, Counselor.
Okay.
What page is that on?
10 to 16.
You just want to show off your computer skills.
Yeah, some of them are red, some of them are.
Okay. So got that done? Where are you? See, okay, all right. So moving on. On the next page, 10 of 16, that's where I caught one of the his, her, and made that correction. We might get this done in my lifetime, I don't know. And then on page 11, two things on line 18, I added the word his, city attorney, put her office in, and every place else he had him, so, or his. So I fixed that. And then also on the limits of the city attorney, starting on 21, end of 21 and 22, I wanted to include the language per occurrence. I didn't want him just to think he had a blank check.
Occurrence.
Occurrence. I'm sorry. Spell checker
I thought
didn't
we
find
had
it.
some other language we talked about at workshop.
Oh, come on.
Just couldn't have blanketed this.
Right. And we will establish the limit during the budget cycle. So you got $100,000 or $50,000 or whatever amount, but that doesn't need to be contained in here.
Well, or would it be contained in there with occurrence of city manager?
Counselor, I can show you that. So we have two documents. So this document has all the additions that you guys had wanted. Or that you explicitly had told me to include. And so that language can be merged with Counselor Corn's. So this was changed. Shall work in conjunction with other point of, so we'll add in Counselor Corn's and elected officials. I was told you guys wanted department to be defined. So the principal unit under the city's executive branch is department, and by director, how shall be appointed by the manager with consent of the governing body, who shall serve at his pleasure. So that's at will. And if anybody's curious where I got this from, that's 9-1-4, that's the definition of a department in New Mexico.
Good.
And then when we go to city attorney, the city attorney shall have pocket authority of no more than 20,000 per occurrence. Such shall not be made without the consent of the manager. The city attorney shall make monthly reports of all settlement to the legal committee. So this is good. Right. So this was changed since our meeting, but like I said, I didn't have time to merge Councilor Corn's comments in my in a reasonable way.
So it's covered in there.
Let's go through this and you and I'll get together. We'll get this thing ironed out. I'm tired of thinking the same thing 15 times.
I agree.
No, because you don't get off a dime unless you get something in paper.
Right.
Could you go back just a little bit? Is that too bad?
Please.
The manager shall work in conjunction with the other appointed and elected officials to effectuate the policies and goals of the governing body. Okay, then the manager shall consult with the other appointing officers whenever taking any employment action such as hiring, promoting, demoting, discipline, discharging. You know, when you say with the other appointed officers, that means he has to talk to all of them, doesn't it?
Unfortunately for him.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that, you know, or discipline, is that, I don't know how many other appointed officers there are, but when you add them all up, there's quite a few.
Going to be 5.
Or just 5 appointed officers.
That's it. And then the deputies. So you could possibly have 10, but you're going to just deal with the principal, not the deputy.
This is just kind of codifying the way it already works with the police department. Like the police, they handle things internally, but as far as the merit ordinance is concerned, the ultimate authority is the manager.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Mayor, on that point?
And your appointed officers, is that the other 4 people, or is that all the appointed officers that we appoint?
Well,
I appoint.
if you add stuff later on, then they have to be consulted.
Okay.
So right now, we're talking about 5, because that's what the state law says.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on that, I'm reading that differently, but I just need to make sure whoever's right, I need to just get that in my mind. On the D, under that city manager shall consult with the other appointed officers in taking employment action, such as hiring, firing, promoting, demoting, disciplining, and discharging against employees that are part of the administrative service in the respective offices. The way I read that is that if it's in the police department, that we don't need the treasurer input. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're only dealing with one. You're not dealing with 10 or 5. You're dealing with one. It could be 2.
Well, wait a minute. Let's just change it right now and make it to the affected whatever.
I think that's what it says.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm reading.
In their respective office.
Okay.
I just needed that clarification. That's the way I understood it.
Okay. All right. And let's see, where was I?
You were on.
We're done with page 11. Let's go to page 12. And starting on line 22, I made the statement that the office of treasurer shall have an auditor nominated by the treasurer. I'll change that, Mr. Mayor. I was just moving fast when I finally got this down.
So, Counselor, to clarify that, if there's going to be an auditor appointed by the treasurer, that can go through the treasurer. It's just if there's a deputy treasurer, it needs to go through the mayor.
Well, you can make them all go through the mayor, so that'd give him 6 appointees, but it's not a. We'll talk about that, but I see your.
The auditor.
Yeah. It's just giving you options, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, talking about a little more clarity there, please.
Sure. So I think Counselor Corn is putting the auditor position that was discussed under the umbrella of the office of the treasurer.
Right.
And so I was saying that a deputy treasurer with the powers of the treasurer needs to be appointed by the mayor and approved by the council.
Okay.
Auditor, because it's not mentioned in state law, any way you guys want to create that position is good to go.
Right.
Okay.
So what he's saying here is though that the treasurer has the ability to appoint someone as an auditor. And that person then, as you're saying.
Doesn't say may, it says shall.
Well, it says shall. That then the auditor shall be nominated by the treasurer for approval by the governing body.
Correct.
But the treasurer, the auditor will work for the treasurer and not the governing body.
No, we hire, we can fire. That's just a basic.
Law what this says, I believe.
Shouldn't the auditor work independently of the treasurer?
Now, here's what one concept, the auditor can work for the treasurer because the treasurer is an appointed individual. And so if the auditor's not doing what you're directing him to do, then the governing body goes to the treasurer. instead of creating a whole separate office of an auditor, you can have that person, that position reporting to the treasurer. And if the governing body has a problem with that, then you go right to the, because the treasurer is appointed and reports to the governing body.
And also, any at-will employee, the governing body, as a matter of state law, can hire.
Right.
Right.
So
That's the rest of it.
Should the auditor have to report that as well to the
Well, everybody,
elected body?
I just want to make sure everybody is working off the same definition of auditor. Auditor just not related to financial thing.
That's
They
correct.
can be purchasing, they can be the
Procurement, it can be processes of any magnitude.
Yeah, any business practices, the auditor should be learned in those areas and be able to look at them.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna have to say, I'm not fond of that. My whole idea was that if anyone is appointed, I prefer them to be free and clear. And that was kind of my whole vision on that. And having an auditor who reports to us under a treasurer, I think that kind of negates the purpose of, I think, the transparency and separation. But my opinion, and I can vote, so.
Yeah.
We're just talking about this stuff.
Just trying to get a structure going here to move this thing down the road.
Yeah.
And I will just tell you, I've seen it in business practice where the auditor does report, internal auditor does report to the treasurer. And they direct them. But just because they report to them, their findings, and you can change this however you want, whatever findings they have should be reported to city manager and governing body. That's how you become involved in that process.
And the governor's body.
So,
yeah, and the governing.
We can work through any of that.
Yeah, without making a whole separate division, if you will. And it's cleaner from a budgetary standpoint to do it this way.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I also say the treasurer may create the office of deputy treasurer. And again, with consent of the governing body nominated by the mayor. Take out treasurer on line 27. I want to get the mayor's role. And he's in a wad. If approved, be employed through the treasurer's office. That's consistent language with what we've already discussed with the other offices. Okay, and the bond is in there. Chief?
Counselor?
Instead of having to go back, I guess my only question is this in the contradiction from page number 9, dealing with the clerk, where the clerk may create the office of deputy clerk? And I was going to say, language since we're on that section, the treasurer, on line 8 of that same page of 9, you say the mayor and city council may appoint one or more deputy clerks, and then right under it, the clerk may create the office of deputy clerk. So are those contradicting themselves?
Well, that's easy to clean up.
Yeah, so the way it's going to get cleaned up is the clerk has its own statutory provision. All other deputies will be appointed by the mayor and housed within their respective offices.
You've got conflicting state law.
Right.
But Lord, under all this other stuff, it's our ordinance. We can do what we want to do.
No, I'm just saying if we're going to do one with the treasurer, it makes sense to keep it
Consistent. Not a problem. You got that, counsel? Okay. Now, also, then we get to the chief of police. And typically, the chief appoints and assigns his deputy chief of police. And so, I mean, and what I've got a real heartburn about this is the appointed police chief gets involved in some kind of altercation and he's out for 6 months recouping. We've got a non-appointed person in charge. And consistent with the rest of the acts that we've been discussing here, I also said that he's got to get the approval of us.
Governing body.
And take out by the chief of police, and put in the words mayor.
Well, you have in there, it says may create. Is that what you want? May create?
Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, Roswell, if we run out of water, could dry up and we'd be lucky to have a chief of police. I mean, I don't know. What do you want?
Well, I think your hierarchy now is that you have.
Okay.
You
Change the word from may to shall.
Deputies right here now.
Okay.
So it should
Change
be
the word shall.
shall.
Okay, got it. And the other thing is, it was moot, but yet we bonded everybody else. Do we want the chief of police to be bonded? We're paying the bill anyway. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we just keep the bonds to the people who by law have to produce them.
Right, well.
Yeah.
And that's,
So we're going to add bond language here?
that's the, no, it would be the treasurer and, treasurer and the chief are the two. Everybody else doesn't need one.
The clerk,
Clerk doesn't need one.
there was language on different things like the clerk.
It was in your,
Yeah, we don't need it. Yeah, we don't, it does not need, you can put it there, but there's no need to. Yeah.
we'll talk about it because I want to make it consistent and correct per state law or whatever other guidance we can get. And if I don't, because it says in all of these that we're going to pay the bill. If they don't need to be bonded, then why do I want to pay another bill?
Huh?
I mean, I'm not gonna get in a big fight about that.
The only one that might ought to have be bonded is whoever's in charge of the evidence from.
Well, but
I mean, that's one that ought to be bonded by somebody.
And then council, just to alert you, there had been a request that we insert the chief of police or designee shall attend all meetings of the governing body unless excused. He shall execute all summons at the request of the governing body. This is the language that had previously deleted that you guys wanted reinserted. So it is already in my clean version. So that'll be incorporated with Councilor Corns.
That's what came out of workshop.
well, generally the chief of police, I don't know, I know in the sheriff's deal, he has to appoint all the deputies and swear them in. There's a big swearing in and that kind of stuff. I don't know what happens in the city police. Do they actually?
We swear them in when they're hired, but they don't do it every year.
Okay, so I don't want to go down that road. That's just.
Councilor Howardson.
I thought we changed that language that he's required to go to the regular meetings,
Yeah, of the governing body, right? Not of.
but all the regular meetings, so not every governing body meeting.
Yeah.
Council.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have to be here. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, it's a little slow. Okay, so I want to make sure you didn't, because we talked about not having to go to every.
Right, yeah, this is just when all 11 of you guys are hanging.
Okay.
You know, or at the request of the councilman or the chair of whatever meeting. If you think you're going to have something hot, you know, you ought to be able to, you know, the chairman of the committee or mayor, whatever, should be able to request an officer to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
We do that now, Mr. Mayor. Anytime.
yeah, I don't think it's a problem, but it's, you know, just, you need to always, you never know when you're going to get something crazy.
And, okay.
Okay.
And then the final big edit.
Took out the city auditor. Did you not?
Yes, see the little red square there in front of, I took the whole section
whole body.
5, whole division 5 out.
Okay.
With my little blue marker there. But I'm not worried enough when I go through. Well, technology's changed since I did this a lot. So I'm getting there. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my amendments and I'm willing to take any lacking that may be coming. And the other thing in this stuff is you can get in the weeds, but I hate to get in the weeds in the ordinance. You've got these little things called job descriptions, and that's where you can make lots of, and this down, please. You can make easy changes in the job description as the need arises. And I pulled out the job description for the internal audit. And if you read through that, maybe some people will get over their heartburn.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I got. So I didn't print 50 copies. I just printed 6.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Because
I really
when we
tried.
talked about the city auditor, we were not aware of that position and it was open
Right.
until it came at our workshop.
And this is the job description we presently use. So, and it spells out, they got to follow the governing accounting standards manuals down in the body, supplemental guidance, the role of the auditing and public sector government to include the following elements: performance, effectiveness. This is where it gets outside the dollars and cents,
right?
But how you're actually getting where you're going. And I read through this and I don't have any problem with it at all. On closer examination, I just quickly glanced at it. I didn't go to the detail like I did to make these amendments. So that's where you can handle a lot of this stuff. And they're easy to fix. City manager can do it as soon as, if he consults with, going to make a change to the treasurer office or something.
Mr. Mayor.
I think most is good. You know, one thing I think, I'm wondering if we don't need a city procurement officer. And have a, they're basically, it seems like they're almost non-existent. We haven't had one. And I don't know if that's, it just appears to me that we have a gaping hole there now. And I don't know if we need to fill that with an actual place and for people to go to ensure that procurements are made in a equitable manner. I mean, it's real hard here to get somebody just to pass out information around. Everybody wants to go to the state purchasing code and buy everything off the darn thing and never give our local people a chance. I mean, police cars ought to be, you ought to give a local person a chance, a dealer, to bid on a police car. And, it's the same thing. You have them, you ought to give them a chance. If you have to go to Albuquerque and buy them, then, but if you don't give them, you never give them a shot and you just go buy it there. Albuquerque doesn't pay taxes here, those other people. And I just think it's, especially in this time, we go buy them from Albuquerque and, ours are a real premium to even get. And a lot of those, the dealers have to get some kind of a fair shake on their allotment or whatever else to where they can buy them from them. But we ought to but just trying to get people to bid playground equipment here. And we have one of the largest playground equipment people or companies in New Mexico and all this whole region, then $500. And they never even get a chance to bid on stuff. And that's not right. So, I don't know, should we really have a whole office of procurement? Purchasing orders, I know Ms. Davies was here, I know where she'd say, but, just think about that, maybe talk to Ms. Davies about it and see if we don't need to go there.
So just to chime in real quick, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. So the state law requires that there must be a procurement officer at the city. We historically have not been great at filling the position. You can imagine procurement officer is not the most grandiose of job titles. The way I would suggest handling this is already contained within this ordinance, which is the organizational chart has to be approved by the council. And I would highly recommend procurement be its own department if it's not put under the House of the Treasurer.
So, question. anybody that can answer, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Please.
So where is the auditor presently housed? Is it under the treasurer's office or is it under the city manager's office? Where does it actually fit into the maintenance?
Mr. Chair, Council Corn, it's not housed anywhere now because it's not a budgeted position. We have a job description. We've had one in the past, but that position, to my knowledge, is currently funded. So it's not anywhere. So we can bring it back at any time, but there's nobody in that position.
So where should it be plugged in?
That would be a decision of the council. If you wanted it under the.
Well, we're just talking.
It's missing off the organizational chart. I'll tell you that. It's not there.
It's not there.
Well, but I may be interested in putting it in here. If we can decide it needs to go into the manager, needs to go into the treasurer. Obviously it doesn't belong to the clerk.
I
doesn't belong to the police chief.
I have a thought. I would assume that position would be answered directly to the city manager, which then through him and the full council and the mayor. That way he gets his direction directly from the city manager on whether or not he's doing an audit on operational issues, finance issues, procurement issues, whatever the issue may be, he can be assigned by that city manager. And if the council decides that they want a closer look into an operation, they can direct that manager to direct that individual over there to do that and report back to them.
And
just my thought.
Follow up on that. Should we put the auditor under the city manager instead of the treasurer?
No.
Where did it lie before? Any of you recall?
No.
It was.
How long has it been vacant?
It's been, Mr. Puentes was the first one that was hired into that position, and it was before I came over to City Hall, so I'm not sure. I think he answered directly to the city manager.
After, may I?
Please, I'm asking for some
Please forgive me.
history.
I may have this incorrect, but I believe I'm correct in this. Did we not hire Miss Verde? Via Verde, or whatever her name was, from down in Verde from Artesia to take that, is that correct? I believe that was the position that she was hired for. She came in and took into that position, and she worked directly underneath Juan, I believe. Yes.
She started in that position, but she wasn't in it very long, and then she went over because we lost some people in finance. She had a background in finance.
Right.
So she went into the finance department. So she kind of vacated that position.
Right. But we clarity at the time when that position was put underneath Juan Fuentes.
Well, and we're talking about, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Please.
This is a permanent structure we're putting in
right
to the overall structure. So you'll have the city manager, the treasurer, the clerk, chief of police, and I'm missing somebody. And then the lawyer, city attorney. And also in this section, I didn't put a section in for a deputy city attorney, which we may want to consider. And same language, except you just change the office that it belongs to. So this is going to be a permanent part of the overall structure. And then after this, I'm done. Let's get this done and then fill in the lower levels and change the names of some of these, because we got lots of directors floating around that are, in my opinion, mistitled. And we need to go through, but we'll save that for a fight on another day after this is already hopefully enacted.
That's what the object here was, to create the structure of what you're talking about from where it sits today and with these appointed offices and move ahead. And this just gets it codified. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
You know, I really think that the purchasing agent ought to be under the treasurer. And my reasons for doing that is that where we are now, we have no clue as to how many POs are out there anywhere. That way that treasurer, she'll have to know how many are out there and how long they're vacant. none of these rolling stuff to last for, 2 or 3 years on a rolling purchase order. It ought to be under her and that, because that way our treasurer always knows what our obligations are.
I agree.
And so I don't think that belongs under the city manager. I think it belongs under the treasurer.
Okay.
So we always have, that person, the treasurer is responsible to know our budget at all times.
Yeah.
Well, there's
I'm fine with that.
So.
I'll just ask the question because I want to take this and I'll work with Cass. If next month we get back and bring this up, it's a done deal. I don't like this holding on to something for 6 or 8 months.
Counselor Arnold and I worked on this for some period of time, and I thank you for taking it from that point to this point.
That's correct.
That we, like I said, we started on this back in September, I believe it was, or before, and it just kind of got put on hold for a while. And so this is getting a refined document, and that's what we're headed towards, getting a refined document that full council can look at. And either it's up or it's down. So, Councilor Perry?
It's just so foggy for me in understanding if the chief of police is going to work completely on his own level as an appointed, as is in the statute. And we've got 100 officers and all the secretaries full, all the rest of them, the janitor, everything else that's all over there. Who do they work for?
Work for the chief.
They work for the chief, but are employed by the manager.
There's my problem.
That's how it is right now.
I understand that completely. But my problem is you start getting to other places. You get the folks with the water department. I don't want to get to a place with all these directors. I'm still not clear because it's not being presented to me who what these positions of directors are. Right now, we've got close to 50 on paper. And like Councilor Cornish said, he believes there are many that we are calling directors that shouldn't be called directors. I need to see that. I need to understand that because I need to understand where all this is going because the council's taking a much stronger leadership on the appointment process of all of these directors.
Not all these directors, all of them. That's a different issue.
That's why you're confused because so many
That's where the
people think
confusion
in the
comes
name
in.
of director.
Because we have all of these, and we talked about that, I believe, at the workshop, was that all of these positions that are called directors, they're really managers.
Nobody, but I'm saying.
And that's underneath, was it not our?
The merit system. Right.
And Mr. Chairman, that's my point. No one has showed me a map of which ones, on our structure should not be. So that's something that I need to understand. And then the other thing is statutorily, if I'm understanding correctly, and our council can correct me, but statutorily, from what I've understood, is that those that are appointed cannot be directors of departments, which was confusion that we had last spring.
So correct. The appointees have offices, directors have departments.
Correct.
All directors report to the manager. All employees in the merit system are hired through the manager, but can be managed by the directors or officers.
So our finance director is also our treasurer.
Presently, yes. Well, I guess our treasurer is our finance officer by law, actually.
Yeah.
The finance officer is the treasurer unless we create an ordinance saying otherwise.
I'm saying right now, our treasurer is our finance director who oversees the finance department.
Not exactly. Mike would answer that better.
So Janie's not our finance director? I thought she was, and I apologize if I'm incorrect.
She's our treasurer.
She's our treasurer.
Appointed by the council as the treasurer, or the finance officer for the city. She's over that entire finance department.
There's my concern.
She's taken 2 positions.
That I need to understand.
And so that again has to be resolved. But so we have not followed state law regarding who creates departments. The manager does not have the authority
under state law to create departments. In the law, language of state law, it's the commission does, council in our case. So the reason we have 40 to 50 departments is because the previous manager wanted it that way. And the way that state law says it should work is that the council decides what departments are in the same way the state legislature decides what the departments are at the state level.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but if I call Clovis or Portales or Carlsbad or Eunice, any of these cities, they're going to tell me that their council does exactly what we're trying to do here and that their manager is not, because as I talk to, I just know enough managers across the state. And, you know, from my experience with them, this is something a manager is normally doing with the state of New Mexico, that the council is now going to be taking over. I'm not saying it, but I'm just saying it's, I feel in some perspectives that we're doing something, reinventing the wheel on some portions.
I would just, I mean, I guess I'd rephrase, I'd say we're just complying with state law because everybody's sentence doesn't mean we should be able to. And I'm not saying this is, but this is, I'll bring up the.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, maybe I can clarify. We're trying to bring ourselves in compliance with state law. Vis-a-vis the Attorney General's opinion that we received several months ago, which is now, a lot of these issues that you're bringing up can be handled, but they shouldn't be handled in this ordinance.
Right.
In my opinion, you can go back through and then by resolution, redefine all that other stuff. But this, if I understand it correctly, is an attempt to bring us in to compliance with state law. Or what's on the books is not what we have done through our action by appointing these various officers like the clerk and the attorney and down through the list. We're functioning more in accordance with state law, but we need to bring our ordinance up to that same level. Now, how you go about that, the big cat in the room is how we're going to go about that. So all I'm concerned with right now with this document is the top layer as defined as I understand it in state law. After that, we'll get chances to fix all this other stuff. Now, the other thing that state law allows you to have enterprise zones. And Counselor, you be sure and correct me if I get out of line here.
It's the commission manager and the manager's powers are the same.
Yeah, and okay. And enterprise zones are supposed to be at least my reading of state law is that they are supposed to be managed for the benefit of the enterprise zone. They're under the umbrella of the city of Roswell, but yet they've got their own thing that they're supposed to be most concerned about. And you got to have those people talking to somebody, and right now they talk to the city manager. And they have to follow whatever procurement rules. So they have to go talk to Ms. Davis. I doubt it, but they may have to go talk to the city clerk, for instance. They have to talk to the attorney because they're in business. So they've got to have somebody to go to look at contracts and that kind of stuff and go through the procurement process. It is housed under the city over here. They're a little different kettle of fish, if you will, different frying pan. And that's something else we're going to have to tackle eventually, but not right now. This just to bring us into compliance.
That's all this document was intended to do.
That's it.
So just to clarify here, so the manager has the powers described in the commission section of the code, even though we're not a commission manager system. Then what we're trying to get in accord with here is shall be divided into as many departments as desirable by the commission. Each department shall be under the charge of a person employed by the manager. So what this is going to cause is whether or not we have to make the collective we being you guys, have to make a determination if we house all the what we call a finance department in the office of the treasurer, then you can do that through this. Or if you want to have the office of the treasurer and a department of finance, not unlike the state has. Treasurer's appointee, he manages certain things, DFA handles other things. But there's no reason why under state law there has to be a DFA. That could all be part of the treasurer's duties.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
But I think I'm seeing this go to say exactly what I'm trying to say. I have no problem with the council determining what departments we're going to have. We can decide tomorrow to close a convention center, not have a convention center. We can choose tomorrow to not have a zoo. We can choose tomorrow to no longer have public transportation. We can choose tomorrow. There are certain things we're required to have, public health, welfare, and safety. We're not required to have a municipal court. I mean, we could tomorrow.
That we are.
Well, we could actually send those confirmations over to magistrate court. But regardless, right here, each department, what's that?
Oh, sorry, we have to have a judge, so.
We have to have a judge, but we're not required.
We could defund the court.
We're not required by state statute to send anything to municipal court. Anything can be sent over to magistrate court. Judge Horn understands what I'm saying here. The administration of the affairs of the municipality shall be divided into as many departments as may be deemed and desirable by the commission. But then the next sentence, which is not highlighted, each department shall be under the charge of a person employed by the manager. There's where I have a sticky point here. I don't think that it should be the governing bodies. We shouldn't be getting those, I don't know how to say it. We should not be in the business of trying to politicize the director of the zoo, the director of public transportation. That should be a decision made by the city manager, and they should work for the city manager. I hesitate saying this in a public meeting, but I have reservations right now because of the absence of a city manager, and nobody's told me any differently. But in the absence of a city manager, we have Mike doing a phenomenal job stepping in there and doing the job that he can do. But if I look at these things, I'm seeing more and more departments coming to elected officials for things which I think needs to be going to a city manager and letting him oversee his employees. If we get into the business of appointment, confirmation by the city council, we're getting the business of politicizing those positions. And that's my concern. That's my concern.
Well noted.
That's not what we're doing with this document.
Well, I just say well noted, so let's move on. Yeah, where are we at with this document? You've made your suggestions. This document now, I believe, needs to be in a final document.
Yes, Mr. Chair, councilors, to make sure I understand. If you want me to proceed with Councilor Corn's description of the auditor, then this will be very easy to clean up, if that's the direction.
Well, just give us a clean document.
Okay.
So that we can read where we're at and what this document looks like. It's not red line, it's not blue line. It's a new clean document. Yeah. Councilor Arnold.
Okay, I still have uncomfortable druthers about that auditor being under the treasurer without, I would like verbiage that actually clarifies who the auditor reports to. And I would prefer the auditor report to the actual council. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we'll have a choose your own adventure, but you'll have two clean documents, one with that option, one with the counselors, and I can circulate that middle of next week.
Yep. Okay.
So is it going to council now, full council, or is it coming back to legal?
I got to get a motion.
I have to come back here.
Motion to postpone.
If I can get a motion on postponement.
I move we postpone discussion on this matter till we have a chance to do final, hopefully, revisions and present it at the next meeting.
I'll second.
You got a motion to postpone and a second. Any further discussion?
If we got through pretty quick, you could have a special meeting of the legal committee, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You don't have to be ready for the next council if you want. If you want to go faster, if you're not meant for you to go faster, don't.
We don't have time.
Okay, no problem.
We're not going to move that fast.
We're going to try to get this thing right and not speed. So it's been sitting around for 6 months now. So
Everybody will get a version.
please. Let me have control of the meeting. Sorry. So I've got a motion and I got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, RFP 23, which is for special audit services. Which is, if you'll please, this is the audit that was sent down, requested by the state auditor's office.
Council, there's very little to tell you about. On December 7th, the state auditor designated Roswell for a special audit. The city is now obligated to secure through an RFP an independent auditor. And by rule, the state auditor designs the scope of work. That's what you've got in front of you. Simple as that.
Yeah, so it just needs to go out for an RFP. We don't have any choice in this.
Nope.
Pretty much.
And it just needs to move on down.
Should it be professional services?
Yeah, it is. It's a request. It's a request for proposal for professional services.
For professional.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and the scope is written by the state auditor. We have no say so on the scope of this audit.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yes.
Yes. And we got another he coming in. If they get started down this road, then they can expand it.
We don't know where it's going to go.
We don't know where it's going to go.
So
That's all we got to do is do the RFP and
that's it.
stand by with our checkbook.
That's it. Any other further discussion? I have a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for special audit services to recommend approval of RFP, I should say, for special audit services to be added to the consent agenda.
Really no discussion, so
Yeah.
I have a motion to add this to the consent agenda. I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Signify, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There being no opposition, so moved. Okay.
We're down to Plateau.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to wait so long.
That's all right. Hopefully this will be an easier one. Our contract's expired with Plateau. We've had it. Actually expired about 7-8 months ago. We just hope to enter in with a new contract. At this point, we really don't have any other choice besides Plateau.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a competitive bid.
Yeah. We went to RFP originally, nobody could do what they do. They have fiber already and all this. Through a grant years and years and years ago, they put fiber in all the buildings.
Yeah.
So when it came out, they already had the infrastructure to do it. So if somebody else came in, they would have to build the entire infrastructure that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go to city council. We'll try it on the consent agenda because it's pretty straightforward. I know.
What?
Okay, does that make you feel better? With Plateau Taylor Communications Incorporated Service Agreement, it's a renewal.
Second?
Was that on the consent or not?
Yes.
On consent.
Did you hear me cough when I said it?
It's a big number.
I know, but I mean, this is another one of those deals. You're either going to be in the information age or not.
Councilor Vest.
I am going to object for a consent agenda. And I think it needs.
Mr. Chairman, I changed my mind on the motion So we need to just put this on the regular agenda.
Have a second?
Take all that language.
Do we have a second?
No, second.
Any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There being no opposition, so moved. Sorry, gentlemen, now it's your turn.
Well, it's all right. I feel like we're consistently the anchor for these meetings.
He's the guy that puts the agenda together, so.
No, I didn't.
Well, but you have that opportunity. You just chose not to exercise it.
Mr. Chair and council members, I'm Michael Taylor, I'm Deputy Chief for Roswell Police Department. Here on behalf of the chief, he is not able to speak. The item that is being presented to you is a consideration of the approval of an agreement between Half Moon Picture LLC and the Roswell Police Department, also would include the city of Roswell. Just to go back real quick, Chief Bill Smith of the Roswell Police Department was recently approached by On Patrol Live producers in regards to them wanting to come to Roswell and film. The On Patrol Live is a police show in which film crews ride along with officers, film normal activities a police officer has to handle. The show is televised weekly, and during normal showings, it hits 5 or 6 different agencies across the country that officers are being filmed. Next slide, please. On Patrol Live recently filmed Bernalillo County Sheriff Department for several months, and the proposed contract provided to Roswell Police mirrors that contract. This contract has also been reviewed by our city attorney. This was presented to the Public Safety Committee on January 17, 23, and passed 3-1 to be moved to the Legal Committee for review. I did provide a short 1-minute clip for you all to be able to identify or review, and then I'll have a short comment behind it. You can play that, please.
2 years since the hit TV show Live PD went off the air, a revamp of that show is now on the way. And one New Mexico law enforcement agency will be on that show's debut tomorrow night. Let's get to News 13's Gabe Chavez.
The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office will be making its debut on Reel's On Patrol Live PD revamp. Now, the show is not like what we've seen in the past. The goal, more transparency.
Hold on.
This is some of what you might see in the new show On Patrol.
There's going to be 2 separate segments on Friday and Saturday night that actually follows along with our deputies and filming live.
Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office has partnered with the new show alongside departments in Nevada, Florida, and South Carolina, to name a few. The Sheriff's Office says they want to show law enforcement in a new way, and On Patrol can do just that.
We're not just focusing on the most exciting parts and, glamorous parts of law enforcement. It's everything in between.
This isn't the first time a law enforcement show has featured the Duke City. The show Cops had a run here with APD and BCSO, but it also brought bad publicity to the city and the departments. BCSO says this time around, things will be different. Instead of police chases and shootings, the focus will be on the daily life of a deputy.
I think whereas Cops and some of these other shows, they're really specified to one portion of the agency. And I think that this show is going to do a really good job of highlighting everybody.
Of course, we will still see the high intensity fights, chases, and arrests many have come to love with shows like this. The Sheriff's Office says this new show aims to show even the community involvement many of these deputies do, not just patrol.
Our deputies are human. They have families, their sons, their daughters, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters. These are selfless people who are serving their community.
On Patrol airs tomorrow night at 7 on Reels.
Now, the reason that I put that in there is, and I want to clarify very quickly, is the chief's stance that he directed for it to be passed on. It was passed on through the Public Safety Committee, is that the chief is not fighting for this. This is barely being presented as it was presented to him. The contract was presented to him, and he felt that this should be provided to the proper committees and onto the governing body of the counselors that uphold or the citizens of Roswell, for them to make a decision that this is either identified as a good or beneficial move for the city or not. We do not hold one stance or another. If it is chosen to go through, then it's just an added element that we work with and our day-to-day work continues on. If it is chosen not to go through, we move on. So I did reach out because that small segment identifies from the public information officer from Bernalillo County prior to the film. I reached out and spoke to the public information officer since they have been filmed for several months. And I asked their take on that situation, how they currently feel now, since they have been going through the filming. They said as far as citizen response, it was about a 50-50 deal. They said 50% of them, they felt good about it. 50% of course didn't. I asked interdepartment if they found issues, if they had problematic areas during this situation or any problems that arise through this. And they said there really wasn't. The only thing that they had that they were concerned with was similar to us. And they said that created for them, they said, we're just giving you a warning, is that with their agency, it's very consistent with ours. We don't have a dedicated full-time SWAT team or dedicate essentially the SWAT team. So we have our SWAT members are spread out through detectives, our task force, our police officers, sergeants, lieutenants. We have those SWAT officers. And they said, be very cognizant of the officers that you do pick if this goes through, that they ride with, because that was one of the only hiccups that they identified was that if they were dedicated to a certain officer and that officer had a SWAT call out, they could not go with that officer. So they could be faced with somebody secondary that may not be prepared, I guess, to have a film. So they said that was the issue. Again, this is presented to you for your consideration. We are not taking a stance on one side of the fence or the other. It's just merely for the governing body to consider and weigh what you decide is best.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. And I think all the rest of the members of the council appreciate that and the chief's position to bring that forward and say, here's an opportunity and you all decide what the opportunity needs to be. So, Councilor Halverson.
So, excuse me, it did pass our public safety to come to legal, but I've done more research and I talked to the chief. What concerns me is the staffing. We have, our officers are one person. You know, the Bernalillo County, they have 2 people per vehicle. So I don't think it's a good idea. I've had constituents that have called me and said they don't think it's a good idea because even I was for it initially somewhat because we could look at the video and redact it. But again, that's going to take so much time for someone to go through all that video. And then with only one officer in a vehicle at a time, he's got to worry about this camera crew and his job. And I just think that's too much to put on them.
Council President, I know you had some comment about last time when this was brought up.
Yeah, during
And
public safety,
you voted against this.
I just said no, because again, I'm sorry.
No, I called on her, so.
I just feel it's a strain on our department. We're not getting anything out of it that our filming crew can't do.
Yeah.
We pay a man to film. He can do ride-alongs just like the counselors are allowed to do ride-alongs or the mayor can do a ride-along. They can put our police department in a better light for us to go out and get more. That's just my opinion. So my answer will always be no.
Councilor Arnold.
So I do want to say thank you for actually taking the time to bring this to us for consideration, but I have to tell you, this is my personal opinion. Absolutely not. I have about 3 reasons. The first one is Roswell is an amazing community with amazing people, and I think it's tacky. Second, I'm not comfortable with my constituents being exposed in that manner, whereas I understand benefits that can come to the police department, but at the same time, I just don't want my constituents to possibly be disrespected. Third, I've spent, I think, since April or May of last year, working on behavioral health court diversion and crisis intervention. And to me, this is crisis escalation. So I am absolutely not in favor of it. That's my stance.
Mr. Chairman, since this story, first time I heard about it, when I read it in the newspaper, and I've done some inquiry, and it's my impression that the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department did it for approximately 60 days, and they're not right along with them anymore, my understanding.
Yes, sir, that is correct. And the reason that I was told today was because of the new administration. They have a brand new sheriff, brand new under sheriffs. And they said because of that new administration, they have not stopped filming. I take that back. They have stopped filming. They have not terminated their contract. They will resume filming, but it was just the new administration wanted to review the contract and put their stamp on it, not just continue on with the old administration.
And the other thing, and I'm putting my judge robe on, that if I was a defense attorney, a good defense attorney, and my client was one of them that showed up on this show, I would be petitioning the court, motioning the court is the proper term, to bring all that footage that got left on the cutting room floor. And so you're gonna, we're having enough trouble adjudicating cases in a reasonable amount of time. And that'll just add to the foot dragging that's going to occur. My last comment was that I was contacted by a friend of mine in Texas and suggested that I call a Texas community that had this same deal. And they went through the whole contract, and then they were not interested in a renewal because it turned out to be a real fiasco down there, put their city in a bad light, in their opinion, and some other things. So I'm certainly not in favor of this.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you know, I can tell you of 3 cases that I can look at right now. One was a man that worked for me, and he was accused, his name was Francisco. He was accused in 2013 of armed robbery because of his name. He was photographed in the paper. He lost thousands of dollars worth of work because he showed up in the paper. And then go along and they found out there were 2 Franciscos. And so he lost, because he was in the paper, he lost all kinds of business he didn't get back. He had to hire an attorney to get out of jail. That's, you know, another $2,500 to $3,000. And then the city of Roswell turned around and said, oh, we got the wrong Francisco. Okay. So that goes along real well and everything. The city, I told him to demand that the newspaper gave him a retraction. And, you know, he was sent to court, everything else. It's on his record. He went down to get his papers. And then he had, because he was going down to get his card extended, they put him down as being a felon. And so then he had to get more help to go get that. And then, you know, lo and behold, a little bit later, the city of Roswell wrote a letter and said, we're sorry. Okay. Now that was real nice of them. And then come along in March, just before this, we all got elected, the city filed another chase of charges on him, sent him back to municipal court for the same damn offense. Now, he had a letter from the city saying they were sorry. And here he had to go get an attorney and get all this, call me. And, you know, we were able to work it out. But it cost him all that stuff again. And never once has anybody in the city owes it to that man, get his name cleared off the record. And they haven't taken one step. The police department hadn't taken one step to get him clean. Not one step, and they all knew about it because they had to do another letter saying that, no, he wasn't him. He was innocent. And same thing. So how the hell it came out, he got cited back into court, from 13 to what, 9, 10 years later? What the hell's going on? And that's just a little guy. So here you cost that man probably $10,000. Our own police department because they didn't do their work right. And he has to eat it. That's not right. The same thing if you have this show, I don't know if they pay us or not. I don't care if they pay it. We had a shooting just the other day. And if there would have been somebody in that camera and went up to film that person that was involved in that shooting, it would have put their life back in trauma every time that picture came on TV. And she, in my opinion, she was innocent. There is no place for that. And there's another case where people were arrested, that I can tell you about that were totally, wasn't a good law enforcement stop at all. And once they get you on TV and everything else, from my own personal experience, I can tell you about some of that crap. I had some stuff happen to me. They never showed one piece of evidence that I was guilty of anything. Not one. Not even an accident report, nothing. And so, but they put you on TV. And and for whose benefit? It wasn't telling the truth. And so I look at that, and it happened not very long ago, just up north of town. And this kind of stuff, law enforcement has a job to do and everything else. And a lot of people, misery, it happens and there's somebody that's always gets an awful lot of misery dealing with a law enforcement person, whether it's their own personal misery or their misery of getting caught. But that's not something that I think people need to gloat over. I think we need to get their job done. Law enforcement have enough problems without looking at somebody over their shoulder all the time, making sure they're exactly 100% perfect. And this, I can't see that it would benefit us at all. And I just, the innocent people are always innocent until proven guilty. And it's not fair to put the public out there, to put them in a place where they think that they're guilty because they were in the paper. Yet that's what happened to my Francisco. And even since this last time, nobody has done one thing to file another, to me, in his arrest record. Why wasn't it in there that the last case was dismissed for the wrong person? And he can't get that off his record without $10,000 for a lawyer to go get it expunged from his record. Can't do it. And that's just, we don't need to make money or gloat on misery, whoever it is, in my opinion. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor President.
And I have the same sentiment. I don't think this situation would be good for Roswell. I see copycatters and those kind of things that come up on TV and so forth. And a lot of individuals seem to be out there trying to get attention, so they go do something stupid or whatever. And by having those kind of shows, it kind of encourages other individuals to go out and do it. And I don't see anything positive from this kind of thing. So, I would never support it.
Yeah, thank you. I just have to say I can't support this either because I'm very proud of our police officers. I'm very proud that we were able to hire additional officers. And putting Roswell in view, the old Bad Boys. I remember that song. It was just, they never showed anything positive. And if they were coming down here and showing the positive things that you all do, that no, most people in this community don't know the positive things you do. We should be doing that ourselves. We should be filming our officers of the positive things that they're doing to help this community. This here is nothing positive. It dwells on negative, it dwells on crime, and it's just nothing I see that's going to be beneficial for you all. It's just going to open the gate for the ACLU or whatever may happen. That's going to burden you two guys, but the administrative side to take care of things. And I appreciate the chief bringing it and letting it be the body's decision to do this. But I think we're comfortable in saying that this is, and I'm going to call for a motion. And quickly, because it's 8 o'clock.
I know. All the other electeds got to say something. I'd like just a little opportunity. And and I know I'm not really supposed to be saying anything about the police because I have two boys that are on the police department. I'm going to anyway. I agree with y'all on this, but I just want to say in any profession, there's going to be something that's not always going to go perfectly. But I just want to say that I think we got a phenomenal chief, we got a phenomenal department. There's for every one time that something goes wrong, we got a lot of times they're doing something right. And I just want to say that.
Yep. Thank you. I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send to the full city council. You're supposed to make motions in the positive.
Correct.
I'm not going to make it too flowery. That we send on the city council this whole on patrol live idea. And I would encourage everybody to vote no.
I have a motion. Do I have a second to move this along?
I'm just confused.
No. I'm getting it on the table.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't have a second. I apologize.
Yeah, I do not have a second.
Die for lack of something, you know, but I don't know. I want to make some positive.
Okay. Motion's going to positive of what they say here. I've got a motion, but I do not have a second.
Now I understand what's happening. Thank you.
Therefore, with no second, the motion dies on its own accord and will not proceed. Moving on.
We just got a second vote today.
This, we're going to have this non-action discussion item with favorite acting city manager. It's been up since who knows long, but Mr. Matthews, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mayor, thank you for allowing me to put this on the agenda as a discussion item. Over the last several months, we've encountered some difficulties at our convention center, not due to the lack of our staff working really hard over there. We've got two of the individuals here tonight with us. And I tell you, they work hard. They're dedicated to that service. However, beyond their control, the problem in this community or around the country, I believe right now is it's very difficult to find staff. So we're trying to provide a service over there to our community to rent a facility and provide meals. We have a difficult time doing that. We've been fortunate over the last several months or the last year to be able to use the Youth Challenge to kind of fill in some short spots for us. That I don't believe that we can continue to rely on volunteers to provide this service. So what I'm asking you, your permission is to allow me to put together a package to focus on what we can do really well, which I believe that is maintaining the facility, renting the facility, and providing that service to the community, and allow the people that provide services of meals, catering and things like that, that do it really well in our community, let them take over that part. So with your permission, your direction, I would like to put together some proposals to bring back to this committee next month to start that discussion.
I think that's greatly appreciated that you're willing to take on that responsibility, that duty, and I look forward, I think the rest of these members will look forward to you bringing back your findings and your recommendations. So thank you for taking. Okay, the speed is on. Thank you. That is city clerk.
They're in the office upstairs. If you have any questions, she'll be down.
No, I think this line here, I think we got reports. So unless the city clerk wants to do a verbal report to us, we can move on if you do not wish to do so.
Good.
Okay. Now we're going to ask for public participation.
There's HR and safety if you, HR and safety. HR and safety just came in.
Oh, do you all want to give your report? I'm sorry.
We stand for any questions, if you have any questions.
I think your reports were here. They're,
Wish with hiring, so.
they're attached. I don't have any questions. Any other members have questions? Sorry we kept you so long. My apologies. We had some issues that took a while. So.
Here, we do have a comment.
I can't read it. I don't. Did somebody please read it?
With no upside, human nature, show officers doing good will go into short-term memory. Something goes wrong, the city will never live it down. All footage can be under a subpoena. Tourism, why would we want prospective tourists to see some of the quote, not so touristy end quote areas?
Okay. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman, I think, well, anybody who happens to be watching, I would like to thank Mr. Matthews for his unending dedication to our community.
Very true. I believe you'll find everyone will in agreement with you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that as well. So being no other business, meeting adjourned.
I know you couldn't get out of here by 8
8 tomorrow morning.
Tried to get the chairman